Okay, so each candidate is going to have a question. After the questions, we have another question, and it's going to be the same process. Remember, 2 minutes for each question. Okay? The final question, every candidate is going to answer that. And if time permits, we'll have another question. And the chapter rented this place all day. So even if we have to go after the 9 o'clock, so the time frame is going to take us into 9 p.m. But if we should go over just by a few minutes, because we want the best outcome for everybody here to make their decisions, because August 2nd is just around the corner. Your chapter president, Gerald Kitso, is going to do a closing. Okay, so
they're not giving out the Wi-Fi. I already asked.
Our first candidate, you have 10 minutes. You need to start talking. The microphone is up there, it's a wireless. You have your sanitizers up there. We wanted to minimize noise, background noise. There's several microphones up there. So our first speaker, before we start the time, is Boo Nygren. So Boo, you have 10 minutes.
Test. Nashka. Yarat Tuba City Warrior, Great Hills Academy, Yarat Dr. Boo Nygren, do not so the South Vietnamese people, do South Vietnamese people, Mesa, Representative Jasmine Blackwater Nygren, Amado Ajan Sobat, Nidlin Sobat, this case, Hashlishnit, Ashihi Yashchido, no that Hachi, the Chiro, but the Vanilla Hoto, not only little at it, law, but he nash, Hotoshi, but Shabada, no Sito, she Ashon, there's not the Hajin and kitchen Hasito, they said, Khela Tina Sashinda, Hera Hasido, the Sashido, Khela or Yela Boo Nygren, and then he gives your sheet show. Ado a celibate because Hodesh Nihiaho the Shiaho out, Shemasanelo, Shema for the Shiaho, Sado Ebony, not for the dish cheat, and Jonago, for the hot, and he wants his case, though Halet all that dish wasn't so fast, Shanat sauce and then Neligi, Hotoshiani, Ada Hodenda, see Kanigi, Hodol Kitchen, Dini, Kanke, and Hido de Win Zenigishi, Nahata, Bedeni, Kahigi, Eshi and Shiaho the Shiaho, Aigido, and Seth Kaigi in Arizona State University in Construction Management by do Masters of Business Administration, do the University of Southern California Doctor of Education by Sipa the gan ba ol kha ba hui ande khode da hot ehgi ro se besen nate harda nat ani da senli do harda inde shwat kuin zeni ro besen nate dra khano yutati to da hon ni ho ne are ke da hat san de thobe da ten best chi dan dos hi da be da ten san de bogan be da ten gin francis ke so de shodo francis ke nat ani da shor sage ya benesh ani do de shwat nat ani bis nas dis gon so francis ke erzähle von der Nacht eben da die Lishige Khoje niketene ke da hat inigi bis da die Lishin Sindi Hopi tribe of Genigi Jo Khoje Hajoa na Hopi Benner Freeze do the Navajo partition lands down Genigi Khanjono Hadal dos Nisa ani tla Njono go kisin de Nisho in the Washington on da die Kha Hajoa che da die Linsen Jo Kato Khan to Khan ke ya Hadal na gi do hat to thoda des do best chi ba da denigi settle de Khojo ke da hono de ya shona ye do Khojo bit nicht da no beschen da snegi bin da die lish be his be his ane da enigi da bes da die lish aro be shna da snegi ani nas dehi do khade ola Khojo khode ke da honi tingo hat nenegi di Khojo bes da has hot o da hoidos so bansis kes khade onle kinda tas jago ta os khato jono na nishike ta kha khale oda khoden khan nahi do kha eta dos ose beta hui za kha nenigi binda di nishin sit khode abe ko wanda hadno ro bina nishta hadno she bohne klo khoden ta nda go hot enigi shna hatta do bin hashado binda dish nishin sit be khodo nigi istisna nish do not ani dan nenigi this sin do binda ja sato sitta da eta di nishin so Francis case ebeni na aro da isma sai Dr. Boo Nargan da no shode no comport ka hoton conditions so Francis case aro ko ne na besh na da hosne go le khoden da has egi social services da nishigi bitte da ne klinda do ne saha case do cheese ba kha yani da nishigi lao do ni so di bitte ho zata do ne gi khoden da khan da khayeta ne to bana nishide do ni do streeto san in jono ba has khode da ni so jo di da besh ba has an da bas da nishle Washington da di kha be jaba da ni so di do besh sto besh sta hosnegi home site lease si bichet na hon plagi halet ola khajo nkachin hodan khan na da hedo khanegi do bi gatta da no khashet na so 5 years 10 years do bi gatta da hanegi do bi gatta ke 6 months chon khata ne ho bi gatta de so mansis case hot on kitchen hadis to le kachiayo belagana kacheso be kichades shiban this case so our campaign is about figuring out what are the basic challenges of our community. Some of the challenges of Tuba City that I think about as I'm crisscrossing the roads or the back roads is those same challenges exist across Navajo land. There's a lot of people that still need quality access to housing. There's people that have their roofs are leaking. There's people that where there's no air conditioning, no heating, no cooling. Right now there's a grandma or a grandpa somewhere within this community where they're suffering from really hot temperatures and so on. In this case, as I mentioned earlier, I really want to partner with the Hopi tribe to figure out how do we address the challenges within the Bennett Freeze and the Hopi partition land so that we can bring the much infrastructure that's needed for those areas, because for far too long, a lot of them don't even have their grazing permits. A lot of them are asking for some of those things, and a lot of those elders have passed on while they've been waiting for those grazing permits. And again, the other thing that you all have told me about is really trying to develop programs for our youth, because our youth need social services, our youth need places to go, because a lot of the times when our youth are picked up, they're either taking the Flagstaff or other communities. Why aren't there centers here on the Navajo Nation to where Navajo people are taking care of our kids and we're bringing them in here? So as your next Navajo Nation president, I want to build stronger homes that are developed from the family foundation. We need family education, that where we're educating our young families so that they can be good parents, they can be good role models, because everything starts from the home. So as your next Navajo Nation president, I want to focus on the home as well, not just on jobs, on revenue and things like that, because I know those things are needed because we have to develop the small business, medium business, and large business to pay for a lot of the things that we're talking about. Because in order to really address some of the harsh conditions of Navajo land that's dealing with poverty, we have to generate revenue. So I'm not saying that we're not going to do any of those things, but as I've been crisscrossing Navajo, a lot of you have expressed the need for jobs. Jobs is probably the number one thing that I hear across Navajo land and within the western region areas. What are you going to do about jobs? What are you going to do about poverty? Because our people are talented. You need to start investing in our people. So as your next Navajo Nation president, I am not going to shy away from going up against poverty, because no family should be dealing without running water or electricity. As a mom, as a dad, as a relative, you should have the opportunity to collect a paycheck to help your mom, to help your dad, to help your relatives. So as your next Navajo Nation president, I am very anti-poverty. The neto on nehigido can't ehido kayedo bansinado de hajo hawano hahos in jono the nekeda haton shehiat eto de sondo horoshia han soye kirdeshi do yat kirdeshi horoshi hajo hifnada hoy neto le agone.
John o hidna what object Quincy Mr. Bunigren had trago. Ado kone eya di hanne alskisko bahashnet dolet. We're also streaming live on the Western Navajo Fair Facebook page. So that's happening as we're moving forward. Ado and yego da Navajo Times ko trasata. Ado kone Hadna eya Emily Elson kona hojish.
Don't understand.
Okay. Wow, that's a very long drive from Gallup, New Mexico. 4 hours, $80 round trip on the gas tank. But very beautiful land and very hospitable community, so thank you. Cheina ke nenchlindo hatsoy bashichin kya ane da shiche do bitani da shinala. Gallup Chapter House she dan shop. So we have a casino there. We appreciate your donations. I need a Benilito chapter, do Jajafka chapter na shop. I'm running for Navajo Nation president because we have a lot of work ahead of us as an ethnic grouping. And there's so much out there in the world that we can learn. So the key concepts that we need to talk about as a group. One of the first things that I want to start off with is land. How did they live a long time ago? They used to say, Leje mitani kaban, kuja hatsoy, leje honagati. So, our plans, amadan in klinigi, amasan, askiche dabawananda, astiking once they get married, they go move to the other family, and they serve that family. How was this structure good for us? Because it protected the women. If there was violence in that family, the woman's family would say, no, Witchit, time for you to go home. And then the kids, they always had a place to come back to because all the women and the sisters were there. The kega, the property, always transferred through the women. That has not changed, even though in 1868, the male-dominated American government came and said, okay, you Navajo women, you don't have a space here. You have no authority. Only the Navajo men do. So that showed up in our government. But when you look at our communities, you still see that these women still live in the exact same fashion for 100 years. You can't change that kind of cultural behavior overnight. So that's one thing that we need to recognize when we talk about collective ownership. Now you see the men staying where their parents, where their moms live, and there's conflict. So what used to be just one clan, now another clan has taken over. So that's one aspect that I think we need to talk about. We talk about the net fundamental rights, there's customary law, common law, natural, and it's not expressed in our Navajo Nation Code. How do we get to that point? So, because there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of violence in our community. It's hard to say you're proud to be Navajo when the violent rates are so high against not only our children, but our women and our elders. We talk about economic development, but the model that creates economic development is about individual ownership. So when we talk about an economy, we have to figure out where we're going to open. And the way that I see it, it's going through our Club C committees. Because a lot of chapters have land set aside, 300 acres, 600 acres. That can be designed to meet all our community needs. Language, because I hear people out there saying, these young generation, they don't want to speak our language, they're ashamed. But then you look at their families and what that teaching environment is in their homes. How do their parents speak to them? There's been a lot of trauma, and that trauma started in 1868. So not only were we sent to concentration camps and our identities tried to be stripped from us, but there was a direct assault on our language. Back in the 80s and the 90s, I had a hard time speaking English. So I see the and you can talk for us. So that took me away from took me in English. Washington, D.C., Las Cruces, New Mexico, China. It's a currency, because if you can speak it, you can get a job, and you can get money, you can provide for your family. So the kids that speaking Chinese was so much easier than speaking Navajo. You say something real simple to a Chinese person, Ni hao. Oh, your Chinese is so good, so perfect. Keep speaking Chinese. You come back here, you speak Navajo, you say one little word. Kids get criticized. Yes, older generations were a lot tougher, but our kids, they're a little bit more sensitive, and we gotta respect that a little bit. But how do we respect that if ourselves were not even healed? So, when we talk about language, we need to understand that the Navajo Nation government and the leadership of the past has failed our generation, younger generation, in giving them the resources to master the language. Accept that part of that responsibility. Why isn't Navajo language the official language of the Navajo people? Why not? If you're not ashamed of it, call your leaders. Tell them make it happen this coming session. Other than that, it's just words. Development. We're having a hard time with this concept of development because it's the collective against the individual. When you read the fundamental right, it talks about the collective interests of the Navajo people. What does that mean? And it talks about accepting other religions and other beliefs, but that the Navajo Nation is the sanctuary for the Navajo way of life. So how do we balance that out? It goes back to our government. We look at our government, executive branch. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of power. Judicial, same thing. Not judicial, legislative. And then you go to the judicial branch, the one that is supposed to punish people. that is supposed to exercise judgment. They have no support, no resources. So that's why our government's not working, because there's no equality and there's no equal distribution of resources. So we're going to keep going around in circles until we correct that. So we're standing up straight on 3, not just 2. Every single entity that we have on the Navajo Nation is plastered in corruption, favoritism. People have lost faith in the integrity of that institution. How do we change that? We get resources and power to the judicial branch. We make it easy to make complaints, to access that, hold people accountable. Anybody that's ever been accused and documented of misconduct needs to get out of the Navajo Nation government. That's how we can start doing that. We talk about crimes against ourselves and our kids and our elderly. When you take a look at the Navajo Nation Code, statute of limitations, 3 years for the date of the incident. Let's take that away and make it a lifetime. That's how we can get those people accountable. And that's how we can get these people that abuse others and that have behavioral disorders out of our society. Because we don't have room for that. We want a good life here. Again, Ellison and Che, and Yade, thank you for inviting me to your community, position number 6. Yeah.
Thank you. Yat do jano de yanich khainzi kha. Aro kone e ya Ethel Branch e ba naho cheese dole.
Yat she Ethel Branch and she bean between a shlin na kai buses chin sit na jenny dasha che ado na kai dashanala Kinthana ke hashche East Canyon Diablo det nasha Luke chapter Asia chapter. So I'm from Western Agency. I was actually born here at the Tuba City Hospital, so it's good to be home. Thank you for bringing me home. Shema A, Ellen Billy Branch woya, Shaja A, Dave Branch woya, Nit A, Shache A, John Billy woya, Nit A, Shamasana A, Ethel Spencer Billy woya, Nit A, Chaneli and Son A, Lupita Chavez Branch woya, Nit A, Chaneli Hastine A, David Branch woya, Nit A, Shiaj A, Holon, Akotau Danet San Nishlin, Sha'e Deneva Washington Be Agadit A Itzo, Shinashnish, Nit A, Kade, Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund, Dinashnish. I'm your former Attorney General. I served under President Begay. It was an honor to come back home and serve you in that way. I brought my education to bear back on my home community. I have my bachelor's degree from Harvard University. I went to Harvard from Winslow High School, so those of you out there and you young people going to rural public schools or schools on Navajo Nation, I'm also a former Luke Tiger. We can do great things. We can accomplish great things. After that, I came home and I served as headmistress of Diné Southwest High School in Saba-Delkai, serving my community, trying to send more of our young people off to these wonderful institutions that are available to them, making sure our young people were fulfilling their full potential. I ran into lots of challenges. I was trying to contact parents to work on behavioral issues with my students. My parents were not able to meet with me. Some of them were driving 70 miles one way to work minimum wage jobs in Flagstaff. Other parents were working remotely in Phoenix, Albuquerque, just to make a living for their family, and they left their children home with grandparents. I had other parents that had substance abuse issues. So it was a challenge, and it reminded me that we need to tackle the economic development issue in our community. If our families are able to earn a good living, they can put food on the table for our children. Our children can come to school ready to learn. Our parents can remain in our community with their children, raising their children, giving them the support that they need to grow into strong, promising young men and young women. So keeping families whole is very, very important to me, and economic development is key to that. And so I went back to Harvard for my master's in public policy and my Juris Doctorate because I wanted those tools to take on the challenge of development in our community. But before coming home, I wanted to get real experience so I could be of use to you when I came home. So it wouldn't just be book learning that I was bringing back to you, my community, my people, but actual experience and knowledge on how to get things done. So the first thing I did is I became a public finance attorney with the #1 public finance law firm in this country, Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, who was actually bond counsel to Navajo Nation at the time. And I worked with that firm to do some incredible public projects on Navajo Nation. For example, the judicial facility, the multi-justice facility here in Tuba City, I was the attorney on that transaction, working very closely with Dolores Gray Eyes and Mark Grant to make that financing happen. And we brought that to 4 communities on Navajo Nation. So I've seen the power of what public finance can do. That's how other governments finance large public projects. And we have not taken full advantage of our ability to finance those types of projects. So as your president, I intend to use that knowledge and those tools to pave our roads. Right now, we have 18,000 miles of roads, and only 3,000 of those roads are actually paved. That is a very small percentage compared to how much paved roads exist off reservation. We need to bring parity and equality to our community. We need equal access to resources. We are also Americans. We should have that same level of access as anybody else. And that also goes for access to running water and electricity. This is why I'm running to be your president, because we face an existential threat right now. We face intensifying climate change conditions. And if a third of our community doesn't have free-flowing access to running water and doesn't have electricity, those members of our community face the threat of becoming climate change refugees in the next 5 to 10 years. So we need a leader who's going to do something about this right away. And as a former public finance attorney, I can actually do that. I know how to get this done. I've actually done it for Navajo Nation before, not only as your bond counsel, but also as your attorney general. So that is one reason why I want to be your president. The other reason is because I see what's happening in the course of history. In 1980, 93% of our people spoke our language fluently. In 1980, only about 20% of our people lived off reservation. Now more than 50% of our people live off reservation. Every decade we lose 10% of our population. If we lose 30% in the face of climate change in this next decade, in addition to that next 10%, that's another 40% loss of our population. Our nation could be empty within the next 50 years. We cannot allow that to happen. We will no longer be a nation. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why do we not have running water? Why do we not have electricity? We have been operating under a colonial government for a century now. This government was designed by the United States, our occupying nation. It was not designed to ensure our prosperity as Diné people. It was not designed to ensure that we would continue as a nation forever. So we need to reclaim our government for our people. We need to create a Diné government that is designed to ensure the health, well-being, and prosperity of our people on our homeland. It is absolutely essential that we do this. And we have incredible tools to draw on. At one time, we were the most powerful nation in this area, the most powerful force. It was only through extreme human rights violations that that strength and that power was shaken. That would not have been allowed to happen today. So let's tap back into our strength and our power, our Diné institutions of governance and leadership. our Diné Behazani, our Diné fundamental law. Let's recognize in our laws what our people know and believe to be true in their heart. Let's respect our way of life in our laws and implement that. That's what my administration will be about. You know, one thing I just want to say in terms of this battle that lies ahead of us, because this requires reassessing our relationship with the United States government. They have not been a good trustee. They have not been good friends. All of the wealth that surrounds us is Diné wealth. We need access to that wealth here in our community. We should be the richest community in the region because all of that land, all of those resources out there are Diné. We need to reclaim that. We need to renegotiate our treaty with the United States. What was negotiated by our ancestors was not fair. We were prisoners. They were soldiers in the room with guns. We need a fair negotiation. And we need to ensure that we have 21st century resources because they are just waiting for us to depopulate so that they can claim this as a formal national sacrifice area. That's why they don't want to put water in our community, because that means we will stay here longer. That's why they don't want electricity in our community. We need to argue for equal rights, human rights. We're equal human beings. We have civil rights. We're equal Americans. So we need equal access to 21st resources here on our nation, in our community. Join me in bringing that change. And meanwhile, we can whip the government that we do have into shape. There's a lot of opportunity to get this government to serve our people better and to respect your humanity as human beings as well. Our own government doesn't do that. We need to fix that. So join me in this journey of change.
Jana do Miss Branch. Ano okune Earl Sombrero dole. Atsa Mr. Sombrero. Nije beshma sa an le na nishike trataraho. Nhahat ne do nhayat le tsaraho zande. Do shabi latan hishtini de kholiya ako Banosen, Oro Socializi, Baby Dobbs, Nahat Andin, Baby, Do Ade Hane, Ade Yo Yehe, a con Hehe, Do Con Trasenda, Shiaj Odo. At Eya Earl Sombrero, should celebrate na Hojish do let.
Ja, oh nee, dat is het eigenlijk is. Al zei hij dat is nog niet. Oh ja, dat is een leider is het laatste zin. Ja, het is de net. Ado in de dag ja, het haast zich alleen. Daar is dan het zeggen. Als hij niet zo graag oh, als je het gaat ja, het is bij nou ja, she dat is de net. Earl L. Sombrero in de shit. Ado ki de chi in shit. Be between Bashish Chi, Kiamani, the Shadot, as a fan, the Shinale, Ado Padosha Mani, the Nini it out, no rage is chin, Ado Shaman, Lenigi, is chin. Now this day, now Hidoba, I hold Shanta, Ado in the Daia, home in the ways of the Ken or Yajishia has been, Shinale Zabo. Has tranché des do Ecuador do international laws do labor how one mazes are the national laws are a need go na way to beat out that they hahata han so nas at the doba art se big the doba anaki hahata is chin ako ya atin the whole one mazes are that and a part of our cardi a quite national laws, Ato Ishiyaho, Ato Abiki, Do Ishin Nihazleo, Inch out, Do Ayati, Tajit A, Ahashi, and think that is the Toyatas, Hoyata has laid Aido Shiyaho, Ato Nede, and the fish, Ato, nice cow, down, after not cow, Pato, a yas cow, after Chita, or what are Yashia has laid. Do ado in the data anile, Ahojina ba or Shiaho, Anile shadow Winsenda, so that you out Shiaho, are in so a bad success. Ado in the Ben Leniki dot isn't Leniki dot long, Ado big rushing, Lenny dot Holido in the sea with Yahi dot long, A Yabike Nana, A Lebike out a heart that A but not your own these arches or need. And so let the Bayajda Nahacho, the Akobike and Albike Nanganisho, A Nachin, the hotels, even Nacho, these are the Alsani Yakio, Shenachi Yahos, I and out at Echo, Ado in the Gaia, Ado Daddy Bay and Dahas Dido Bay is Nahas Ani, Dodo Basis Haneta. Khala shiri kote tkhaya akot a besh khaz ado okot a tkhin shna in stel and steko atin de wen zahato hol jishite atin de fish khashraun shnal za atin de ya belsakedo ba khasam ja'i khon zatish khol jish no neden led ashiten ishito khishito khashja dat eda be nan banstrato le edo bo bahang senta ado in the sani about zero in that the haon neniki shtaho zenko at do e yan ho to keta de kwaya she wedi ado chiyo e da ni ado shnati ni da shnala oh, Rachid says the cheer that is on that is on that is on the way the king negio adi ado land chio go what ashia ado in the lega the nella bani yachon lega han so do kwai yeda ado di nida أشياء دان دي شاشن شين نتوبن زهق إياه شاشة صوب كشن نال كده ويدري أشياء أجان نشين نشين خشية هنانا زاند إيد آدون دي كيسات نينا آدا أو بود زي لساني مش تاوزن باخوني زي ديش جهول جشت إياه تدو سبني هذا دو تدا بتأجل زي كيسو إني إيدا دو خايني نيدا دو نيت نيدا kon diyan shi ya yuhin shtani zenohashi ne dahle ko hash ya hashi sekle dashi de shakhan he khod tahdi nise nike has twi ni hizan ni khod de khida they understood the true meaning of what reject ego do khod ya khod se do thousand on ne ya Alcohol, that I hit the horny, Ado Kodoti, Ahotahoni, to shave a dishni, Doishida. So that Doishida. Hada Ega Bishbahasa, unready class, that Eba Nazla, Behazani, Sahato, Nihazani, Lady Bahnazla. The quadrants like the judges, Dagi, the Nebata Inishi, Aquai has Aniki, because there's Ito, has shown not Ito, Lehiki, you see him and yet a hot and that. To has Ani, the Hohen Stone, Rito, the Hohen Stone, but yet that is that. You all need to understand that. So, Ayani, has Ani, Nahani, Yata, Kondian. No, we do not understand. We have no realization the suffering that took place and the laws that they created to lay a foundation for our governance as the net people. They have on in the honey, yana, or Nachikwini, Zen. Do Choho Ego Project Adan, Belagana Yidle. Ade o choho on so has skills ni kenat enatle ni kenat ensot eti kaya ni gati beso ni chechenti han na chekwentot ni bakhat choho ya te do choho got wi ni koho ni che khote do ba wi chio ha shi do khotet ke ha di wash do khotet ke ha ya ha shi do la ni na che sa na ni dri do la be ke je ye ke do be ke je ne ni do choho go na khana ne نقاط شنن لنات آبود آب ناخی نیدو به ناخیت کیو دو چهوهی کن خیلت لحدی نخی کس زه خیبید ایگه دو نیز بازنده دیده نیزات زده یود ایت زده دو به نخت اهدیت ایده خاط دایدو زده به نخت اهی کن نوده Ebeni namo ebe ehotes li na iketes li kol jiste na khas tweet ado kol ne bai de ne chant dikle khai di des latino so bahas ne le khas ata no to be no to sigi be chant di pa ne di ne che do di ni da che ade ne chant na ni ge do es beta beto ni do Edi be kegi at a screen. Hashit out etado, bonahil todo ati ne yeta. Hala hotza. Dida ahinin in the Haswin hizani. Ha the shinde in hizan. Badado helek ajin no hoto gra. Aj edo nasta now titato le nishito ne. Oh yeah, by Hassan Hashit out any his zato, but now in Ato Bay, Ato the Hatchin and need now, Vahito, Docho, and Goyen now be the Hatan Kishne. Nikisha did the neck at Chito Yet Kish Ato in any Tata. It's a choice, people. It's a choice that you individually make to speak your language. It's not up to your leaders, it's not up to your parents, your grandparents. Nikitasan Zingo, Nikideti. Che without me, Sassido to the without, I dabe has ani, honey, yaha, a keketi, keko, without a yakat, which is night, that's what you got to be done. Question now, they would get in now, nature so about test case. You are the governing body of the Navajo Nation, the Soban, test case of
Jonah, Aro Kone, Mr. Greg Bigman, quite na whole Jeez. Candidates, you have the sanitizer wipes. Ashwanda, clean the sanitize your microphone. Ashwanda. It's not there to clean your face. Yeah.
Testing. Yate shike do shidene. She has tweet do shizani. Shits ken do shits She ya great big man she. It's onion a shlento torachini bushes chin. There's a fana dasha che do top on hana as it dashanala. Marie Bigman a shama. Do Howard Bigman shije. Hastin. That's on even cat the G. Be a Paul Farley che. Do Hastina Saha. Be a Sullivan Bigman Chanel. That's where I come from. My platform of putting people first comes from seeing the disparity that exists in Window Rock down to the chapter level. Working as a consultant, I've seen what goes on in Window Rock and across many parts of Navajo with various enterprises. And I've seen the disparity that goes bigger than looking at the wage gaps, but I've seen how the people struggle. And I didn't know what was going on until I saw what was going on at a chapter level. And so the people that work with the chapter, I want to thank you for the work you do. Because a lot of times they don't get acknowledged. And a lot of times they just get put down. And they say, you don't know what you're doing. Or this is where all the fraud happens. But it's not the chapter's fault. It's because of all the bottlenecks that exist. And that's where my plan was born. When I think about our Navajo people, they get criticized. They say you can't do it. But as your Natsani, I want to say I believe in you. And that's what putting people first is about. Putting people first is about getting the resources and the authority down to the local level, because that's where it matters. Putting people first is about decentralizing our government, so that way local government is empowered with the authority. When you think about it, the city of Flagstaff doesn't have to drive down to Phoenix to get things approved. Yet, that's how our chapters are treated. That is the true bottleneck that exists. Because of that, we have this disparity. And that disparity is widening between chapters and central government. So in order for us to take that and give people the power, we got to put it to where the people need it. And that's at the grassroots level. Outside, I was talking to some individuals and they talked about the conditions of the roads. They also talk about the need for the chapter to generate revenue. They also talk about the need for the home site leasing to be improved, the need to resolve disputes. In Title 26, it gives the chapter these authorities already. But what needs to happen is to spur innovation and start working with our education partners so that way we can bring in this new technology to help development in our communities. The other thing that we talk about here is the disparities that exist and inequities that exist in our society. This is created, by Navajo. And so to reduce that gap, we need to fix it. Some of them are external. But the big ones we talk about healthcare, public safety, MMIW, water rights. These are all things that will impact our sovereignty. And having the know-how is one skill that's important for solving these disputes. But the other thing that's equally important is the leadership that is brought to the table to help solve these disputes and working with the people. One of my platform, third part, is getting stuff done. I sit on the board for Tenet College. That's one of the organizations I helped turn around. I also helped turn around Navajo Nation Oil and Gas. I also helped turn around a little school in Newcomb High. Each of those circumstances, what I learned was that it's leadership that drives the action of turning around, because as a leader, no one walks behind you unless they know they're safe. And so to create a system for that, I have a proven record. And getting stuff done is more about leadership. It's also about knowing how to assess numbers and treat people right. You have to talk to people right, because that's the driver for any person. And any organization is people. Awakening the sleeping giant of the Navajo Nation will require awakening all the people to have them realize their hopes and dreams in terms of what our community can be. It's impossible for every community out there to have all their needs met. The reason why is because every community is unique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the chapters to see how we can start to cultivate leadership. And I already started that plan, working with the Tenet College to see that we have a master's in business administration that can help local chapters. Local empowerment is about bringing people up and inspiring them about who they can be and who they can become. And I see that when I work with the communities out there, and I go out abroad talking to people all over Navajo. Everybody has role models out there, whether it's Jacoby Ellsbury, Derek Begay, or another leader out there that's a CEO like Bill Gates. I like to believe that all Navajos out there inspire to be somebody good, somebody great, somebody moral and ethical. that has good values and that will help their community. I know that's what every parent wants for their kid, and that's what I want for every citizen on Navajo. So changing that gap here is about putting people first. As your president, as your Natani, the big picture theme is focusing on things that are important for Navajo. That is the health, safety, and welfare of our people. Bottom line. So public safety comes in. This means that the job as the president is to help coordinate what's happening with the government services in addition to business, whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit, and also public safety. Because my job is to protect the interests of the Navajo Nation, and I will do that. When I think about decentralization, a plan comes to play. And what the plan is about being able to get support where it's needed. There's 3 phases in that plan. First part is decentralization. Second part is about bringing the resources to help support the communities. These are things that can be collaborated right now by working with delegates in order to help see that ARPA supports the communities. Every community out there needs several things. They need planners, to help with their Club C manual and have a vision for the community. They need project managers to help develop these plans, but they also need grant writers. There's roughly about a $4 trillion market in donations that exist out in around the United States. Having a grant writer can give us access to those funds rather than having to wait for a window rocket. The other thing, the second phase is utilizing public financing in order to leverage funds so that way we can bring money into the community. And these are to help bad areas that are needed. We talk about supporting our youth, but we haven't seen any response to it. When I was out going on trail rides and I was talking to people, that's what the community talks about. Supporting our youth with youth centers, sports complexes, and rodeo facilities. This is where value starts. It's where leadership also starts to develop as well in terms of looking after one another and being able to lead people in a small team, and that's investing into our future. Lastly, some other areas that are needed for capital investment are chapter houses. Some places don't have a home. The third part is looking what we can do at the grassroots level that is very easy. Agriculture, livestock, and also artisan markets. By building these infrastructures across Navajo, we can access the easy money that is there. That means that supporting small businesses becomes an initiative. And so this comes from the process in terms of looking at how can we start to empower our people. And that's my plan for putting people first. Now, go ahead.
Nana Akeha, Mr. Bigman, John Obadeya, Francie, Aro Okone Eya Kong, Mr. Justin Jones, Baho G. Dolet.
Yat shik edo shidna shekahasilo ado shidayon no senigido perak egit ago kudo ishid ejitsli ado endeta eya donach senigi ebet ahni donach khatnes zamdeva shchino kitchi eda shchi ashi eda shnal ebut ad eya denach ado sentades aholya Rock Point, Arizona, Ado e Shiaho, Ado e Ado e Nasha, Dishneke, Akwe Shiaho, Agibelina, Shije Ado Naga, Ado Shema e Netsa Chit Hazkana, Holgedo, Ado Naga, Ado e Tsespahayan, E Holya, Keya, Betoche, Ado Hot that Hazkana Holya. Ado senda shijada holya Benaig, Quaido, Asia Mossando should shade a Holonde, Airford Sayan Nakri, Nana Tentad is Ahado, Sentinel Sop, Zitnes, and the Cheetah has Kanahod Yao, a Quaggy Kaya has Ahon out, has he hold Chini Nes with Yenek Chini Law, Mitsui, Nana Zansas Bahawad Yao, Asia Mossando, Mitsui, has he what it can be get with Yao, Asia another his key. Call Yede, Ado and the Shanada Zai Zansui will Yao, a con Ade Hajin there, Diva Web Yajan Shen, Yen, the Shnia, Chicane, Senigi, Qued Nahani, Kaisele, Konan Stizzo, Yahage, Ado and the Kodo Shas Chinel and Lenige, Ash Chin, the Ned and the Nazi, the Ned, John Art, that Ochin Zero, a code put egg, Chicane, Senigi, a Koyat, Hidini, no less, Arnold, so Beda, Kagi, Algo. A call Quebe Nahani, Crescendo, Quebe Yadahos, Agido, Ekodona Havan's case, or Ekodo, Ekon Shunle, Ado did that is that one day, Gido, Eshin Genovan, so case, Ado Quena, I see Hanigido, Hanishida, Hastad, a call as a whole jish. Upon the old Abicate, the Hodi, Navigate, Kashina Hadlende, upon the Sanzito, Idits in the day. Hada the He Jano, Ishin of Habicated or Hilitzen, Ado had Ishin Janova, the North Saint. Even Nashenda had Ada Esa, the Bayat Hitler, Nahat Adleni, the corn at Aya, Salad, a corn Jano, that they quite deal, Nendo, de Hatchino, de Hatni, Hode, no, the Econo Hatchni, Arthur, Eric on the Wicked case, John Ela. Edo Dagodeha Jada the Isnasa, so that each Enatin Zenegit out the Equeda, Namchineda, Echaneda, Bitijilene, or the deeds Ada, Eda the deeds, Ibika, Eshoya, Elantan, Zenizi, Joshe Queen Sobenina, Ecuador, Eya, Eya, Esa, Live, Nana Street, Ledo Lake. Akodina had our Yagishi, Eko, Sabalaho, Zande, large, Queda, Stan, Lenigi, Kodot, Eya, the Hidden Ledo, Hinza case, Ledo, Adeya, Ekinat, Len Hizard, Ledo, he saw the Zenat, Adekon, Zahot, became dark leader. Akoye, Hat ish Epenina, Hat ish Epenia. Shady had done it or the Bebenan, Ada dishwater. Khatas, Neta Edobana, Shteed, Aden, Ovana Ade. Ako Nishida, the Nakits, Ata, Nacha, Nishida, the Nekodano, Nda Okaho. Shady Quidget, Radin Ahi, Shloh, Nishida, the Nadinova, Shanafe. The net Quaggy, a nice of a kite, okay, on this out, every says Klizanaj Judge. Ebe Radit Ahin Shlom. Ako dance a Hoshit Be has Ani with Yahagi Snida Akwi Jibi, then Shido Be Nashnish. Ada Bebenad sauce with this Ado, Akin, that Jod with this Ado, Ado the Ekaya Bada Wind, Ado the Eya, Hodeya, Nan, the Stoheshi, as Kahat, Ethiki, Ahot Ad Eya, Benashnish of Hunza Hojish. Joko Ebi, Yinoben, the Kagon, the end of the Ebi, our Ashes Bahosen, the Nahot Igi, the Nebi Craig Grafiki, the Nebi Jelo and Zekis, this Navy, Nazot the Benekish Hotel, they are the Bebenat of Shahway, so there's the no in the Yesha Haka, Quedesha, so there's the Jadja, Hadeti, Shahandle, da no, the other hour. Never editionanish, don't this is one end that then the Reda Hidabanda as they were Edona Shada Denga. A call dear, Eshinanish, Dosha in Insenigi, Doshis, Jondo Benish, Ledo, the Nether Lady Chandler, the Benessa Anda, the Ayat the Kodoha, Haranomas, the Dochinata, I feel that I have done my duty. The syntax, she able to ako di shin tsele na okha hagi ako hoshila dini ako de na ki ko ade ya shabana ne do de dini ne do no ya do o do no go de ya do di do asa o chit dina fe se bina fe go gi ben ya do de kisha ni khidini tsele Nana ik hadot don da no chego do de di de so ja da kwani kishino ja egi ade di na do ni chest khidat don khas zda de ebenina bechende di da khodo edidini bechende di da Erik ade di tle John ade van sikhisle khatishin khe ade di ya inado ado da tishidan lo ako be hodon nesiki khad da hani kodlo khad da experience had da resume da hani shede o sebina khay senza des ade da ot khaden ustra Ado sebina na khay ado na ich khatsle ebik hadit ahin shedi jede akon de eshe khojko o Igi site khena tkhin be shuvis neli so desen be shuvis neli ja die ja edo o zitne o shashin o khado do kit khatish ya ho ata seda de bebe chkhan hun shkino ya ho ate alo kit chkhan ya ho shkino ya ho dens han shkino ya ho na jahawa de akhadni ish bahazan de push chin wal yafis ade menam aho ya ade option da ade bigo bihil elo ish bahazan akhadni chitelo de aho kodo akot de donne Dik ade belgrana hodete khedo belgrana annedege de belgrana khondete agina kede dode dadi nok ahde shida zat ade na kidene zati dikena jashi ni khabot adida belgrana anneni de no hot out ade jede kanifta hot de nek ahoyasha an hintizade jehdi zehasha an hintizade zehasha Jodi no levan sikhish edege ebene na goye edi on ye resume ado adeki jid khod ya charchun lene charchun ma khalt alchun yahuin an khedal ya khajo khobat el klip howan khoeba ilyas le hajo howan kholo alo khaya do kholo khatshe do kholo ende da howan namaz do kholo da ak do de bedo kholo dit dishi isi be da do lehnt dik adet ocht dit el ganik dit die ben nashige de shneye die be de shneye shik eno khnige die be khash ela dil net or se hada eno no ye Adit khayde jawan siso keza jawi ke otra jono howan el klela ho khaya khot el klela ho ma holla ne jono te da ne bal holla khaya da ke holla khat she holla so de zenit ela atel kebi gisi ye ya hos ala a khayne de dik ade o yen hat ade no si ne seno yede kudobe en khishne to le chike no felige kha
Thanks, Mr. Jones. Otto and candidates, so far, are we doing okay? Do you enjoy the open mic instead of questions? You know why it's different? It's because you're in Tuba City. Right, people? We're the best, right? Oh, Otto. Konsache sadyat ehidits hehe Adonas hojish eya Rosanna Jumbo Fitch Kwagit eya na hojish 10 minutes.
Yat Ash Kadoshadane. She ya Dr. Rosanna Jumbo Fitch in the Shia, though you are the net 20 in the Shle, my deshkis Bashes Chin, Tabaha Dashe do Deshi Dashinella, Ado Jinli Nasha, Equag, Shahuan, Dosha Kaya, Dosha Take, Dosha Lee the Holo, so Yat at Tuba City Warriors. Ado the Lebanon, Bugginish, what the Gi and the Chigi, Yadini hit the Napa. Atagi yani the atisigi do as they go older into college. Ben nachigi ben nachigi yadik adeya beso do there's not enough funding within those programs for our little youth. And my goal is to ensure that we have our kids come first. We have a lot of forums where kids came up to us and asked us the simplest questions. From our youth asking, why don't we have community available for them? Why don't we have the simplest things such as a park, a baseball field, a softball field available for them when they should come first in every priority that we put within our communities? Because the kids are going to be the ones that are going to be here and they're going to continue to grow up here on Navajo Nation, and we want to provide for them, make them feel comfortable, make them feel welcome, and ensure they're our #1 priorities. Working parents will we want to ensure that not the shigi lado left but na chigi they can provide for their families. Di tagi ni salat so hayuk at salat so di the nebekeya bekaja tabawan akund. They struggle with housing, they struggle with facilities, mental care, physical care. We should be able to prioritize them and not have issues with budgets and be able to fund whatever needs that they have, whatever needs they want, because they serve for our people as warriors, and we need to present and represent them in the right fashion. I want to be able to provide them housing. We need to be able to provide that for them. We talk a lot about all the issues we have on the Nen Nation. We have issues within our local communities. We have issues of not having the proper infrastructure, the proper roadways, the proper facilities to run our Navajo Nation government. We need to start to plan and work with our leaders. Each of our 110 chapters, we have local leadership that represent our people's wants and needs. We have local leadership, such as our council delegates, that advocate those needs at the Navajo Nation level. We have leaders in place to help to document what our people's wants and needs are. And we need to start to listen to those needs, because those are how we should be prioritizing our government. For years, we've had budgets. For years, those budgets have been slowly increasing, and now we have funding available for infrastructure. But we need to remember as leaders that we prioritize based on our people's needs. I'm sure those that work here at local chapter level, we've submitted proposals, we've done resolutions, we asked our people what they want, and we in return as leadership need to return that favor and actually provide those needs that are being requested. So that would be my goal, is to ensure we follow through with those plans. I wanted to talk about Nihidanepanant Kinigi. It is a huge issue. We see it. It is 2022 and COVID brought it to front of how important our Diné culture and language is. Our Dinepanant Kinigi Nihimasanado Nihiche Ebenachigi. We want to continue that lifestyle and that fashion. And with that, we ask the questions. We have questions of why our kids aren't learning Navajo. You know, when you look back at it, it is us as leaders that need to put that position first. We have a lot of medicine men, the Neb Nation, the Neb Azep and Havahagi. We have the Navajo church system. We need to be able to fund those types of programs so we can ensure we continue to encourage that exists within each of our communities. Each and every one of us have seen a medicine man. We've seen a church. We've seen how we dress within our traditional attire, our jewelry. We see our children wanting to want that. And we need to continue to keep that alive for our kids. Let them continue to practice it. Let them continue to use what we have here on Mother Earth as their traditional ceremonial uses. We need to encourage them to respect Mother Earth. Those are some traditional teachings we need to continue to advocate for and support as local leadership. And that is the only way we will continue to preserve, continue to respect who we are as Navajo people. Our Navajo Nation government, we see and question why projects haven't been done over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And we all look back at it, each of us ask, what is holding us back? And that is our goal as leadership, is to be able to solve those issues. We currently see the lack of public safety. We see the rise in domestic violence. We see the rise in mental health. We see the rises in our health system, how we can't serve our own people here on Navajo. Everybody has to travel off, but our Navajo Nation government does not have the funding to support those traveling efforts. Our Navajo Nation government doesn't have the specialty care facilities for our people. We need to work with our own internal government to fix these areas of concerns. We need to encourage our people to work on Navajo, but how do we do that when we don't pay the right mountain wages? We need to encourage that we implement wages that suit our current needs in our economic government. We have to ensure that it covers the cost of travel. We have to ensure it covers the cost of housing. We have to ensure our people can afford to feed their families. And that would help to eliminate a lot of the issues we have in our households today. We have a lot of issues with domestic violence, drug use, alcohol use, bootlegging. Those issues can be resolved if we work internally with our leadership in order to fix the overall reason on why. We need to look at the issues we have as well, such as agriculture, livestock. Is struggling with their livestock count. We have no water, they say. We have a lot of natural resources, but we need to advocate on behalf of our people so we can continue to live here on Navajo Nation. We talk about moving forward. What are we going to do as leadership? Our president just signed $1 billion in legislation for our communities. And on behalf of that, the next leadership that's going to be is going to have to be able to plan, budget, coordinate, work with each to ensure that those projects are done. And we have to continue to remember that funding was given to us to help the urgent needs. Our urgent needs we see is water, roads, broadband, electricity, so we can continue to support our people. We're Navajos, we live simple. The only thing we request is we have a home that's available for our families, and we have to be able to carry that through as leadership so people stay here on our land so we can continue to get funding and continue to grow each of our communities. We talk about being able to work together. We talk about how our system is broken. We don't have leadership that are talking, respecting one another, being professionals. We need to fix that at the top leadership level. What is the purpose of trying to advocate for your people when you don't have them following you? We also have to ensure that we're supporting one another, working together, and we have to work with all three branches of government. We have our legislative, we have our Navajo Nation Council that advocate for us. But we want to make sure at local level and executive, we are listening to our people's needs. When we provide a resolution, we want to ensure that every person behind that resolution is continuing to advocate, because that's working with local grassroots levels, and we need to continue to support our people. And when it gets up to Navajo Nation level in Window Rock, we need to follow through with our promises. That is what I see as a Navajo Nation president, is ensuring we are meeting the people's needs, but at the same time, working with all three branches of government, ensuring that we are protecting our future. If we are disparted, it causes more issues in the long run. And when we talk about Navajo Nation government, who's going to take the reins the next 4 years? They need to develop that plan for our people. They need to develop that budget for our people so we can continue to move those projects forward. We have a lot of projects that have stopped, and we need to continue to fix those issues and follow through as a strong Navajo Nation government. That is my platform, is to continue to work with every local government and ensure that we follow through.
Dr. Rosanna Jumbo Fitch, audience, we're live streaming through the Western Navajo Fair Facebook page, and we now have online 420 listening to the forum. Everyone listening online, thank you. for candidates, we're on time, we have good timing, and other forums, we've seen that at the time goes out and they just shut you off. We're doing good timing. Go ahead. I don't know what you say. Jonathan Nez, quite a whole cheese,
All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening. Tuba City Warriors, Western Agency. It's good to be back in my home agency. My mom is from there. So my son Sanya without the kid to Shantu, even much I can't. Arosh ya con Tratnesani, could you coal mine canyon? Anybody from coal mine here today? Coal mine canyon. Aro Twitchini, that's a chido, Tachini, that's another. So even that's it. I have my wife here. Phil, you want to stand up again? Check out her shirt too, by the way. $10 if you want to buy a shirt. Just for you guys, if you want a shirt, we'll sell you to you for $10 today. And my son, Alex, you want to stand up, Alex? This is my son. Give him a round of applause. My wife, Tabando, I just want to quickly just give you an overview of our experience. That's what's on the ballot. It says Nez for Prez, but it's also your spouse that's on the ballot as well. Am I right? And so with my wife, she just earned her master's degree just a little while ago. I have a master's degree, she caught up with me. Now she's going for her PhD, and I'm over here waiting, well, actually living my dissertation, right? Government. And, political experience. I grew up going to chapter meetings. Those of you that know Shanto, down in the canyon, on the chapter house. And we used to play in that stream a lot. We used to come in all muddy and get chased out. And, it was a great experience. And Mina from Shanto, we're the first local government certified chapter, right? And Tuba City here is a local government certified chapter. With Gerald Kitso, the president, and the officials. It all goes back to Albert Hale of local empowerment. Local empowerment is very important. You gotta have good leaders at the local chapter, And, for me, at the Shanto level, if you've ever been from here to Kienza, there's a Shanto marketplace, hotel. That's the power of local governance, ladies and gentlemen. Local government does that. I did 3 terms on the Navajo Nation Council. I see Amos Johnson here. I see Tashoni Slim up there as well, Oto So. 3 terms on the council. And these leaders that are sitting here before us have done a lot. Tashoni, we got a brand new chapter facility, right? In Tonalia. Brand new chapter going on. And I had the privilege of being a Navajo County Board of Supervisor as well. We got Percy Deal sitting right here from Navajo County. We got Louise Yellowman, Coconino County Supervisor. It is very important to recognize that there is a network in place in leadership. You can't just jump to the top and say, hey, you're going to be my bro. You have to be able to work from the bottom all the way to the top. And being the vice president of the Navajo Nation, there was a lot of division, remember? Come on, Western Agency, you remember what they did with Chris Deschini, right? And they took him off the ballot. But because of that, Russell Begay got in there. And Russell Begay said, hey, Jonathan Nez, Shkadidwa. You know, I had no ambition at that time to be the vice president. Nobody ran against me for council, right? I was a shoo-in. But you know what? She chased it. During that time. That's how powerful our language is. It split us, even in the home. Russell. I said, okay, that's going to be our focus, to unite the Navajo Nation back to one. And I think we did a very good job, but because of you, ladies and gentlemen, you gave me an opportunity. 67% of you voted for myself and the vice president. 67%, and I believe that's a mandate, ladies and gentlemen. You know, and doing Shanto and NAU Flagstaff for some time, you know, we were able, my wife and I we were able to stay home, close to home, to help our people. So it's a very important, and we tell this to our children, right? Work your way from the bottom up. People will help you along that way, all the way up into positions of leadership. You can't just jump up and say, hey, I woke up one day, I want to be a manager or a director. Many years being in your career, you work your way up. And you know, that's what happened with us. You know, and the network that we have spawned between us, you know, people know the Navajo Nation, far and wide. I know you guys probably get tired of me on the television or on the news, but you know what? People are wanting to know about the Navajo Nation. That's why they're asking us, what do you think, Navajo Nation? In no time ever in our history have we seen the Navajo Nation at the highest level, all the way from Washington, D.C. and throughout the world. Having a seat at the table and meeting the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, I got to be able to meet him. And not to brag, but that's your vote. You put Joe Biden into office, ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago. And we have a seat at the table because of that. And you know what? I want to introduce to you my good friend here, who is running for governor, and I ask for you all to support him. Marco Lopez, come on, stand up there. Marco Lopez is running for governor. And he is going to do some great things for the Navajo Nation. We also have a state representative here as well, Melody Hernandez. District 8, House of Representatives, please stand up. See, that's what it takes, ladies and gentlemen. You gotta have a network. People know leadership. We know the senators by name. We know the representatives. They know us there in Washington, D.C. We don't need to start all over and reset, do we? We need to continue to move on. Because of this pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, you have done an outstanding job. Give yourself a big round of applause. We were #1 in the nation in COVID positive cases. And now today, 70% of us are fully vaccinated. 65 and over, ladies and gentlemen, 90% fully vaccinated. Our elders took the lead for us, ladies and gentlemen. And we are transitioning out of this pandemic. And because of this pandemic, the entire country got some funding. We received $714 million from the CARES Act. That money went into your pockets too, hardship assistance. 1,000 homes got electricity. 300 people and homes got water. Telecommunications and broadband towers were put up all across the Navajo Nation with the help of my brother Udo. So thank you so much. And last week, 20 of those delegates voted for the future of the Navajo Nation so we can continue to bring water, electricity, broadband, telecommunication into the homes of our Navajo people. Here in Tuba City, a housing manufacturer would be built down in Curly Valley. There's going to also be a nursing home put in here in Tuba City, ladies and gentlemen. That's the future. Remember, former Bennett Freeze, $15.5 million to help out and build homes in that area. Ladies and gentlemen, we are progressing forward, and I ask for your support. On August 2nd, position 10, let's all say, Nez for prayers. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Jonathan Nez, before we move on to the next person, the online listeners and watching, the number is growing. We acknowledge you, we thank you, and continue to share our foreign information. Mr. Frank Dayish,
Okay, she can't, as Tuisani, she tells and she ya Frank Days wants to get an instance can't so that now quite the name that she not touching that she has a nation here that but all not any when that's on any that so hundred no check that out. You have 8 and then you know one that's on. I can't not about them. Hooey, that I did some Yak Elb and Yakza, the Haton, and the Haton, so what out there on Nazareth. If I hear then say the way is your so, you're not on in Nasdaq as a Nelly in the way now, Consigo. A quay Yashiaho, Yahash Jeb, Kayap and Nashi, where home site lease Shahot. I don't think was chair was a and Benaji, Yaha, dark a heavy carget that you had his son. I don't understand the net, and shows the in Hugan. I don't know the best to see a Yahan the way church is cut it. The one long, what are you, Yaha equal, Nahani, Kayova, here, what are Yaha, Saturn Katahouse. I don't the home in the up bed. A Yaha in Nanazla, home Yaha in the Ado the corn. Yaha Bana in the Adine at Ayaz Beheston, St. Bedard town. So the St. Bedard town, Johot Aben has Aho. I don't Yaha content Konas, Johot Aho, Yaha, the never in that, but they did not need Tahoe cup. Nothing just stands at Pati Nachbayata, Native American Church in North America, that does it out, Ajay Kashanan is Ishla. No way. Cannot create a Banashitan Yavano, a day have one though a year have one acquires Anigi Pahatasi. This change in gestion, we just can't, you know, Yada has net in on the city, where has unnecessary to the Zen, the net, Kakistation, Zenigi Kate, any Eslati, Kayaho, Zogi, a more eight to the Zen, very Baba, Sendole, Bahas Tindole, Arabe has Anita Bahadon. That need to go. Epaholia, a Katisti, the Hoado, Ahoyat Elbe, Nasi Catholic, Nana Avant, J. Sotazen, not Asa, Yada, Ehegi, Johot on the stars, Neho. Aron the Ayaha Katisti, the Akat Elda, Belgan and then in his Aya, Kawan Zahol, just Bezani, Yani, Bezani, Yajabi, George Odoni, Aquade Hatzi, Aquabe Nado on the Shahun Zahang is all just, but are you Yahan on the stars, Neho? Aron the day, Nikadi, Jatadi, no, Bendadi, Nashipi, Dawi, Edo, no, then. The horny will never washing doors, Shijod, Aquagi, Hot, Egi, Asantas, Zokoya, Nastagi, a coin I die, Yabas Nan, the city, Kadeva Gado, Jahojo, Egainan, the sheet at the door, what? The Nanish. on na ya na stagi she what is na nis istan go na ani nes e bakadi ja na nis kata ni chakati no when the ho just kodi ya athi ba ho akha de she the net be ke ya bakai basically do eji e ya e ko shana ashja jo e ro bakadi ja sa to me ya ta ni aro le o thi ba ho ban ta ni ki khashi chi yanda but a ya hai ban si ke so ko e ro be so che ho do ni e ro be so ani da so ko ba do ni so ko ya hai ye ken da ta kha do le jo da ti no e ya ho ni tha ho yi kha ho na na sa da so be ta an je sa da so an shle आज बन तशीफ निश तो हो ए रो कोई बाया की आई ता बन गई निश ओ ए यहाँ ए नते नान जोर्ज दे हिने खा था द नास ते ऑन द नाट आनिन खा दस खाई कोड आ कंज पे किता हिने ऑन जोन खा से द दो सी पे आनिन खन द दो कस पे गान रे यहाँ ए पे खास ताई दो पे द दो ने जो दाई पे से हदा सी सी एन द पे द निश बेस मा सा अंदा या हदा सी अखोत आ अंदा ए यहाँ ए कोन हिना निश दास ने ओ ए सा तो को या ही द दिश निश हुन सा हो जिस को कोड आ ये ए ला हो तो एस थ्री डे yahada sani to ado hawando bayat ki ajo dan asata ho ajo nanis isla bigyon has iro bawani zen peso na zogi ko er hawando nehigi sada soba hawando nehigi jo e ko e yahaben de ne shokol jisiko dan ta ba da kosin sani kan ni eta e yaha e na kente zeje e yaha ko bekenda de zo khare ha ahe to ko je aje ado na ho kostosha da aje ko e trai ke yahin lahagi de ke kene a sobata hui a ho but a ye thina ne stars ni na te ho just thoto nei ve na ani nezde to na George to tsaga ho zanje aji los ashla na khaya ta ben dashi nis e so da ti ne da di no ba ya de ki e ko be thai ke ya hin la hi da ne che tho da do ni kun a ye be da si zi da di no e ya hai ba ya de ki ko ni na ne sna da do de da di no ani ko je do so le je do be no ho ta ho na na ko je a je ke ya hin la hi do ba ha do zi ho ta ha a ho but a ye ke na ne sna da di ne da di no na ke ya hat nas ne ligi e ro ba hin te da so te ne be ke ya do ni ta di no kha da was tui do sani de yo ne a hot a be ke ya yo da yo no e ya i kha ke da hat e ho ba ba kha ni sen do le jon a ban se de ke se ko a ron da ya ha ko e na hot a na has anegi se down de ligi to ba hat den di ya ke ya a ko je ko e be so hot ni ko je e do be so hot ni ta da no se da do ni kha i je ta e do ko e ben da di ne so che da di le ha jo ke de ne san is tui dan de ni ba ha ya do le sa di no jo a e ko just a ko je na a only ba ha o ji ben freeze a de ko e a ro de ne che has na ne na de ha re ta ba no ba da ya e na a de to da ho a ya hai ta ke da ho just to ye da ne a ho a ya hai ta ho a ho jo ho ben na da don de sho a ho a ron da din da ho a hin de ni da ne ben ho a hin e ro di o ne a ye go ben da di ne sna o do ne jo ko a ya hai di khashi ni shi a ni chen da hi na ne gi e ya hai a wa ya a ron da ya hai ne ho ai a o be ne ho ben da di ne shu da di ne ho ne we wait the night then da fin ne loze bez anin khach ayila e ye ta e befnani na e da ani ta shi da da e be na anish ado e do de tinda di trans but a ye ye ha ite ne ba ya e do de ti a da di no na na cha ko ken ni ji do fin ne loze ke ya ya e ya ha hun za ho e ke ya ha na sa do de sta no a shi a e de ne ba kha do wa khalik a e ba da cha da sa da di no she ho de sno a re ta pa si aron da e ya ha din ne de ne ba ti khan ne gi e da no to e za da ko e ya ha be ken da de to so jon kha do kha na so da ne a de be ne da a de ne e sa jo be be sta do ne da di no ho jis ai ta ho de ya e be na de shne ho no we sha ja je ho za ho e a je ke ya ma khan de ta ho ba ho no sen ai ta a ze en dal i so de zen na da jo ta e ya na za ani be ni na aron da di ya a ka fi stem de ni be ka shin de ta gi aron da na zo shi e ya ko hon at ya e ba ya de ke ban de any de da holone bini na ba khani zen jo ya a ba hadith ze ho na na ka histen leni e do hon at a kha da ba has a do ni jo ba ya de ke ho a kha shi ya ha ba da in ne ho a de be so be da on hon za de ho a do e do de jo ban za ha ke a ron ke chen ye da do de ni de be atina i da ha ji jo e do ko na ni na na sta do de jo ba ya de ke ho na na ti has twi san is a last so ta do ba jo ba da khai ba gan da de no ho thi ba ho na jo a le a e ho da da di no jo khwai e hai ba ha do ze e do be sa ta be jo do ni no khai da jo be na has a do ni jo ta e hai ni na ne stan le ho a ro san ni ho ni a yo da has khai kha she da ze ha de ni e do ba ye thi do le e do na ha ta ban di jo ta e ba ye thi da ho o ta ye e ni na ne stan no hon za ho ho je shi na ta no fe ni ge ho ba ke de ho a ro ko shi ke ya hin za ha gi do le o je a ron da ho jo na e be a ro sen ke shi ni ge do e ya ha di na jo shi gi ke ya ha gi a khwa gi e ya ha a shi a e na te o ho je e do ha jo ba ha do ze de na be ya e gi a ba do ne jo a da di no hon za ho ho je na ke ben da hi jo ka sa la so ni hi za be ho na e be do le na so san ni do be do le e ni na ha an hi za hanan te do le ya ya ha be na shi na le di kha de ne ba i na ba da di no a ron da te za ta ham da sa ta frank dash da do no
We have strike one. Before we move on, if you have Facebook, we have an individual in the house. She took the initiative to interview our candidates. Ya kwage tsasato, Lin Bitsui, kwage tsasata Lizin. Danos Dois till night kid Ada. Yeah, Lin. You gave us a greater insight of your interviews. I don't know for just Frankie Davis. Quite a young na
Hello, can you hear me? Yay, got it. Okay. I'm Frankie Davis, I'm position number 9, and my website is navajopresident.com. Shay Kenya Ani Nishle, Pachi Ibashish Chain, Shinala Dine Nakai Dine Edanile. I keep hearing. Okay. I keep hearing the reverberation, sorry. So I'm going to rip out in English. I understand. I am not like all of these people over here. I'm learning, okay? Boarding school Toyat Aidan Chichito Kepa Eminina Ashibina Belecanic Ache Ade Ade Kesh Torsto Ade Yashtio Do Shinanish Ade Belecana Dana Kaina Ade Banana Shah Beso Ashkon Shah Chinapa Shay. I was a single mother of 7.
Well, first of all, I graduated from elementary, junior high, from high school. I got a bachelor's at the Brigham Young University. I was a single mother of 7 children, and all my children are university graduates. They're excellent contributing members of society. They're lawyers, they are doctors, they're surgeons, they're business owners, and they're incredible. Then I traveled to Japan, and I learned all about the Japanese people. And that will come later when the education form comes up. But I got married to an Australian who was sitting straight in front of me, Bilagana Troy, I call him. But anyways, I love him. But anyway, so we created a research company. While I'm creating this research company, I started hearing in the background about the Navajo Nation, all the problems here. Yeah, I'd love to snow radio or I read the Navajo Times about the Nene leaders. They're embezzling, they're mismanaging. God, I just kept thinking behind my mind, what could I do? What can I do? In this case. Although, as I created my business, I started helping Native American tribes become federally recognized. So I was working with senators and with Congress people all the time. So, they don't care about us. They lie to us. They have never lived up to the treaty and all the treaties they've ever given. And then I read about Quijisho in Bosque Redondo. You look at Kit Carson, Scorched Earth. Although bad food that killed our people. And then the soldiers sold the children to who? To the Bosque Redondo people as slaves. And then General Sherman came in and said, you know what, this is true. It is happening. So we were the first Native American tribe that were released by treaty. And so the only thing they wanted, of course, white people always want something, basically to promise them a right-of-way for a railroad in Arizona, New Mexico. Then it goes on. And then all of a sudden, the more I learned about independence, I hated the white government. I started to dislike everything they were doing. They're liars. And so I started thinking about my grandfather. Why did we sign that treaty? So anyways, I started thinking of that. I started thinking of complete independence that our grandparents talked about. So I'm an Alati. We depended, and the government they started helping us get minerals from the ground. And do you know the only reason why the Navajo Nation Council was created? In 1922. Why? Because the only reason they existed was to fill out mineral leases. So I don't know what the hell they're doing nowadays. But anyways, they're not doing much. Anyway, so now I want you all to know too. Your Navajo Nation General Fund, guess where that comes from, all that money? Oil and gas. Everybody do. You guys, I always say, I don't understand why most of the Navajo Nation refuses to excavate the wealth we walk on, we drive on, below ground. Because you're living off of it. That's where you're getting your paychecks. That's how you're getting your school money. Yadillah. So, basically, the white people have done a bad job excavating. Well, when we have our Navajo Nation learn how to do this, we understand Mother Earth, and we won't do what they did. I want to be able to create a bank called Barbancito, and you will have a branch here in Tuba City. The Congress has lied to us. They refuse to be responsible to live up to their treaty agreements. Now Oklahoma has a foot in the tribal doors because the courts were inundated with problems. We can no longer look to Congress. Herb Yazzie even, and I love that man. I know a lot of you people hate Herb Yazzie. He was the Supreme Court Justice. I honor that man more than anyone here on this Navajo Nation earth. You know, because Dinebabetas on an aid, yes, and Dinek Achiyaki, Nijonagon, Yasato, our holy ones, so that they'll Zindano, Aiden, so we need to take back our land to get rid of the white man. They've given us evil habits like alcoholism, drugs, greed, power, control. Just look at our leaders. What a mistake. It's ridiculous to look to the United States now because of civil unrest. There are 30,000 plus in debt, and the dollar is unsustainable, and it's becoming worthless. And we are looking to the United States for economic freedom. Come on, you 14 people sitting here with me, my buddies. Even the United States is spiraling to hell. And we're going with them if we keep begging. Dependency. You know where we learn dependency? We learned it at Haiti. I want complete independence. I don't need a PhD. I don't need to have a Dr. Boo title. I know better because you can't. If you keep doing the same thing, doing everything over and over, you cannot get a different. You just can't get a different outcome. So basically, and the time is running out as normal. My plan is different from these candidates. I just say, where are they getting their money? We don't have any capital. Neves knows that. We have a GDP of 10 billion. Where's the transparency? We're crying it out. $1 billion, ARPA. Screw that. $1 billion is nothing. That is nothing. Navajo Nation Council, we need to know. I want to know where these guys are getting their money because it ain't here, and it's not in Congress. So guess where it's coming in my world? Down here with our natural resources. That's why I said last time, give me your jewelry, give me your cars, because that's exactly where I'm going to get your wealth. You are a rich people. The Holy Ones gave us this, and they blessed you. That what you're walking on, the land, Kotisho, what do? We use this for food. Here's the Holy Ones. What did they give us? Look at my jewelry. It comes from them. Remember that. So that'll find out which one really is the person who's.
Frankie Davis, Jonah. Adeya, Dolly Manson, Bahojij Dole.
Western Navajo, Western Agency. I'm happy to be home. I consider Tuba City my home. I went to your boarding school here long ago in the 60s and 70s, and I have lived here all those years, and I lived here in the summers doing summer work. So hello Tuba City, Cameron, Badaway, Hachi, Shanto, Inscription House, Kayenta, Tenahotso, Chichinpito, Copper Mine, Kaipito, Birch Springs, Loop, Coal Mine Canyon, and Navajo Mountain, Yat Chanwichidani, Adolfo Ada, Isidon Agido Pongo, Soniki, Ado, Shadayon, Shachinishas. And I thank the chapter government, the chapter leaders for putting this on for us so that we could be here and share our reasons why we're running for president with you all. And then thank you for all the leaders that are coming or are here tonight that have been recognized already by Mr. Nez. Thank you for being here with us. Adon so I'm a Thunderbird, Tuba City Thunderbird. That's where I went. Yay! And did you know that Tuba City Boarding School is one of the best schools in the country? Yay! And I worked on that when I used to be your education specialist from 2003 to 2012. I was your education specialist and I made those things happen and I'm proud of it. I don't know what happened after I left, maybe still it is, but I like to think that still it is. Okay, now first of all, I'm so sorry. About ya bashin tranan sale tadeshkiz ni dishne ade children sheta deshkiz ni bashin that's a fun dashe tranan ni dashna la kotego san shne bashin chene kotego lazy rich by the way yep ade gonda kai aro she ya aje kai bito don le chat ho aj na hos Askibi Osana or Yede that Janosh Dawajin Tashe Adon Dita Chachina Kihizado at Adoshitsoke Yatra Oshanalike Astotra Adoshijone Hullo. I think it is very important to be in this position running for the Navajo Nation President and also being elected as your Navajo Nation President. To have your better half or your spouse, because it takes two, like your yin and yang. And I would like to introduce my husband, Amos Johnson, your former council delegate from Kinsila and Forest Lake. I would like to introduce Shija, Lede Dasara Slim, I see Shija, Shamasanan, Shamasanan there, the Naleta, Akotan Hijede, see Dolly, Ako, Ado and Dita, The next thing I'd like to speak about is that our campaign, my campaign, is a grassroots driven. Do e hat ada takodo hidan hilando setiada tito ado e shikana ja akut ego e shwar ado that our campaign does not accept donation from corporation, tribal enterprises or non-profit organizations. Isha hota jopenina ni e kujit e wait aida ha jef Edon Senda, Edi Quananishna, the Shashkoshtan Shakangi, Nina Hadden. And I believe that is how corruption starts. Edoban, Eda. Endita, Adon Dita, Dita, Edi Kon Hiddenash, the Nayat ICA, Shajan Loban, test case. Eben and I could do let me yet I see that the neck at Chukodesa Yata Horne, as Yaho, Toda, then a Tunde Yell, Adosani, Dan Katsani, Taya, Shinago Holosh Yaho, Ndaha out, Big out, Aro, let the Horne go Eshiaho, Eben in a Yantas case go. Sani in Ditala, that's an Hashehodot, Lichtenson. Joshe Ebenandishwood. I think it's going to take a woman to do this job better. Because for so long we have been putting men in there over and over. It is as if we're stuck in one position over and over. So that is why I decided to run and do this. Adon Dita, some of my platforms say, yeah, who they that don't think the whole tradition, I don't education. When I mean education, I'm not just talking about the classroom K to 12. Education, yeah, Hajon Antin. Banda hode notzi. Anda was ade what the kliden net hitten benan tienen hichon benan tienesha. Ein his benda hododzi. A jona hodod ni ultra lago. We're going to include our Navajo traditional teachings and our language back into the schools. Every school that we have, not just an hour here and there. I would like that to be included, more hours. Some places we're going to have them like almost all day at the elementary level. We want to look at our own ways of teaching. We have been looking at the Balagana ways of teaching for so long, trying to use that sort of teaching. It seems as if we really are not getting anywhere with that either. And I'm going to partner with the Department of Education, Arizona, and New Mexico, Utah, to make these things happen, those education departments out there. Such as the public schools, they would have to listen to us. New Mexico, just like San Juan or mini meals on the other yago, to aid at the Hajota Dieta, aid or Kushten Hoto, Niti Tonicate, Holodo, Red Aito, Zago, Todo Benta, Nita, Twain he, Hadashi with the Yada in the Nen, Rainla, Toniche, Hashit Aito, Bakit, Lad, Ain him, Hindot, Lake. Adon did the cool behavioral health services. But that's the social services. I will partner with those people and your Indian Health Services, the Department of Health from the United States Department. We will try and attack these social ills that we have for the big habits that they state that the Hanon should down the Hachini and Hashita, a quote that the note is. Adults in Zedon Hash Edo, Nish Code, say Zenda Haki, Hebo, the Holo, Port Aki, it out. Adon, the public safety, Don Nihisani, Do, Chinhajishin, the Haslanda, Hajopin, the Anastope, Hosen, Don Leaf. A quarter in Hija, Zido, Edo, Shitine, Adults allowed Sodo, Coat Talker Museum, Do, Hajoba, Do, Nihinson, a core, position 2. Dr. Dolly Manson, that don't need or that they own. They think, yeah, now she came.
Nana Akeha, Dr. Dolly Manson, Jungle de Hernzi. Ako Kunza Chadeya. We gave each candidate 10 minutes to state their platform so that the audience, the people of Tuba City, have a better understanding where you're coming from as a candidate. We want to be more transparent for the community. We have a bucket here, and Helen will draw the candidate's name, and then Myra will draw the question, and then I'll read the question to you. You all have a 2-minute response time. Frankie Davis, you're up.
Hello.
This is a question from Resource and Development. In 1998, the Navajo Nation Council enacted Title 26, Local Governance Act, LGA. All chapters should be working towards getting LGA certified, but some are not making an effort to become LGA certified. What would you do to promote LGA certification to non-certified chapters?
This is time to stand up. Okay, guys, remember, I've already gutted the Navajo Nation. Because why? Because we are completely independent. I will not answer that question for this fact. We're not going to worry about certifying chapters. Do you know why? Because we're going to have a police officer. We're going to have 2 or 3 women overseeing and helping the chapters. On top of that, we are going to have the money from where? Our Mother Earth, and we will have the services that we're going to need. Each is going to be autonomous to each other, meaning you'll be like a little state, and everybody will be taking care of themselves. Food, water, everything else. And then I will have basically a person who will take care of the purse. And that will be somebody who knows how to bookkeep. And that person's going to be able to report to me and to everybody else so that the chapter is standing in line and not embezzling. No more choosing families, no more lying, no more crap. That's going to be my world. I don't know what these 14 are going to do. They're going to do the same old thing. Remember, do the same old thing, and guess what? You don't get anywhere. So anyways, that's what we're going to do. No certifications, because they will be autonomous and they will be good people who are watching, and 2 police officers will make sure that you are doing what's right. Amen.
Yeah, Frankie Davis. Helen will draw a name. Sandra Jeff, she's not here. Justin Jones, you're next. Mr. Jones, your question relates to commissions. Office of Navajo Government Development functions to plan government reform, but to be effective, they can't be reporting to Navajo Nation Speaker's Office or the Council. How do you plan to make Office of Navajo Government Development more effective in implementing necessary government reform?
Government Development Office is a product of the 1989 Sahas Lido Tsipote Yahada Ibidinat. Based upon that, maybe we can have another form of government. Remember now, 1989, Title II, Sahona Liaeda, Executive, Legislative, and Judicial Lebi Hitzo. Fundamental law. It's in Title I, Section 201. There's a 4th branch that's in there. Office of Navajo Government Development, at least about 6 million. What have they done? The reason why it's ineffective is because the council has a hole on it. It makes no sense. So the Government Development Office has to be an independent body over here, representative of you. Because if they appropriate the money, then they're going to have the purse strings to it. So it has to be an independent body consisting of representing all of you voters. That's the only way it's going to work. Even under the present nation, it has to be independent, consisting of all of you.
Can I have Mr. Jones? Helen? Rosanna Jumbo Fitch, your question relates to law and order. Prohibition has been in place throughout our lifetime, and it's not working. Would you consider lifting and allowing legalization of alcohol and/or cannabis and utilizing tax revenues to generate treatment centers on Navajo Nation? Where does the alcohol sales tax generated from casinos go?
Yes, thank you. Great question. Again, law and order, again, the alcohol, no cannabis. Again, when we go back to our traditional teachings, we learn that these are items that were not held by our ancestors, by our elders. And we see the effects that it has on our nation. We see what it causes within our households. Those are some items we don't want to allow. We don't want to invite domestic violence. We don't want to invite broken families. We don't want to invite health care issues into our households. Yes, maybe there is a benefit in the costs, but in the long run, is it a benefit to our people's health and safety? We already have issues on our Navajo Nation government in regards to our public safety not being efficient, not being effective, not having enough staffing. We already don't have enough funding available to support these kind of causes. Why would we promote them? Why would we want to encourage our people to use these illegal substances within our nation? We need to first provide the needs of our people before we start to think about what other items we can use as official items for our funding resources. Our Navajo people are very effective, they're very creative, they're very crafty, and they're very unique. And we need to continue that uniqueness of what we respect, what we grew up with tradition, and put those forefront. Because we see the strengths that we have. Each of our household know how to provide funding in the worst times, and we need to continue those efforts and promote that. And we can divide ourselves between alcohol and substances and continue to work strong as a nation. And we can find additional resources where we can provide funding for our families. And we need to look for those additional resources, and we need to be able to provide those solutions for each of our communities and not just lead directly into the negative aspect of alcohol and substance. So I encourage our people to continue to stay positive and continue to move forward.
Dr. Rosanna Jumbo Fitch. Helen? Frank Dayish, your question is with Department of Diné Education. Department of Diné Education has been pursuing taking control of all BIA, BIE, and grant schools on Navajo Nation. And the majority of the affected schools are against the takeover. What are your thoughts about Department of Diné Education taking control of all schools on Navajo Nation?
At everything in Naki, but our English was just this seed. Yaha Ahagi, Hajo, Gati, the door, Aron the best kidney still. Tasta as Yao, Aron the Yaha Egi, not Ani, then it was a bunny tone. So what out they don't need, cut a head out, open out with Zo, Edo for Banados, needs Edo for Benade, so no, so quick and get out, hey, what? Na Yaha eat Asabani, Gelo, Ahagi, Joba, Yago, Joe, what out Yaha at Chedonis, Ajas, Ange, Tana, Way, no wata, Quid, she's leaving, did Ashena is the Adini, a Yaha Head Start, Okahodologist. Emergency program, in those needs, I don't question the next HSPO, but our Yahanahil are, so what our Yahay, I don't stand careful now, a Yaha Osayana, Stagi, the Shenanigans, our Hajoba, Yao, Joe, what out a Yahabe Nasi don't not, I don't intend Lenigate that the doors was gay or Tape, Joe, I thought Nesigi, Edo, what out or Yao, Yat etole she yahat Frank Dash giza tahan dasata na kinan de dona kiska on yahat Frank Dash that non hinan jita doxi yeah.
Mr. Daesh, Helen, Myra, Ethel Branch, you're up. Your question relates to economic development. Navajo Nation lacks small business due to Navajo Nation policies and procedures in starting a business. What are your plans to implement changes for small business growth?
I think one of the barriers is that our small businesses only really have one entity to work with. That's the Department of Economic Development. And that entity has two inconsistent roles. One of those is as a regulator, and the other is as a supporter of small businesses in our community. I think we either need to establish separate those functions within the Department of Economic Development so that small businesses have an entity that actually is interested in their development and strengthening and growth, or we invest money for small businesses in NGOs, for example, Change Labs, which has a very strong presence here in Tuba City and is doing an incredible job of providing small businesses with the support that they need. Honestly, I think we should be investing more in the NGOs because they're already doing the hard work. They know how to navigate the system. They're making sure that there's actually value added for the small businesses and make sure that those resources are located all over Navajo Nation. But I think the issue is bigger than that also. We need to make sure that our small businesses have access to business sites. We need to ensure that our small business activity is insulated from climate change. For example, developing indoor marketplaces so that small business activity isn't reliant on weather conditions. This is especially critical in the face of climate change and intensifying weather conditions in our community. But I also have a growth and development plan that would put in place zoning in 10 major growth areas, and where the President's office would have a technical team that would go in and establish turnkey business sites, and we would utilize the CHISN fund to build the economic infrastructure that's needed in the form of shopping centers as well as downtown business sites, because all of our flea market vendors could be businesses operating in a vibrant downtown business areas. We could be driving the tourism traffic that comes to our community.
Ms. Branch, Helen, Myra, Jonathan Nez, President Nez, you're next. Your question relates to law and order. Lack of law enforcement is a huge concern on Navajo Nation as crimes are increasing.
Right.
What are your plans to make enforcement happen?
Well, in the past few years now, we have brought the police academy back to the Navajo Nation. And we have graduated many of our police officers here on the Navajo Nation. And just recently, we graduated 10 more police officers, 2 women and 8 men that can patrol the streets of the Navajo Nation. We also have reestablished, in my administration, we reestablished the Drug and Alcohol Task Force. Now it's called PACE. We have gone out and did some raids on bootleggers and got the people off the streets in many communities throughout the Navajo Nation. We also have reestablished the Highway Safety Program. So those of you that are speeding, be careful, because they're going to be out there and they're going to slow down traffic and they're going to get DUIs off the street of the Navajo Nation. So that continued effort will keep going on. We are proposing in this new fiscal year 2023 budget $1 million to go into the Division of Public Safety to continue the Drug and Alcohol Task Force. We just got recently 5 new canine dogs that are going to be on the streets of the Navajo Nation as well. And that will continue and develop a missing persons unit. Right now the criminal investigator has to do major crimes and juggles all that and has to look for missing people. We need to get a criminal investigator that solely works on finding our missing loved ones. And it'll be a priority, and it will continue to be a priority in our administration. And for law and order, we are looking at ways of getting a new jail, a new police station in Shiprock and Window as well.
Thank you, President Nez. Helen? Boo Nygren, you're next. Your question relates to Department of Agriculture. We are aware that grazing permit impacts economic and community development on Navajo. How would you resolve this?
Yat hanot hoen aide kilgi khashet debebnal sosbe da holloni persindis nanigi jodi nanish khatnol chalto hoek kin thahda doznito kin de doznito athoda binda khagi khashet na in khatoli khanigi she khodo sitta hagi debebnal sosbe be da holloni tin sencho asi chedo masana yada chado benina chekeya Arshon hodin jonogo keda honit inigi bini nache ahot ende nasko be holdol to she to job besiat fito bes nahat ado bes to aron dahaz khan khalid ola nisn de joniye to le khalid ola khajo ti de khallo lizin kas shin bait inigi dina nish bait inigi nesto khodo di hospital no shin jono de ne bet double needs no hot on khandish so again I think in order to really boost economic development, I know that there's grazing issues, home site issues across Navajo land, but the way we work, if I become your next Navajo Nation president, is be at the table and honor their voices and to make sure that it is up to the Navajo Nation president to really negotiate on your behalf and communicate the bigger picture to these grazing permit holders, because I know in their hearts, they want jobs, they want to better their community. So as your next Navajo Nation president, I want to sit down with them and honor them and then make sure they're taken care of too. So thank you so much again.
Dr. Boo Nygren. Helen? Dolly Manson, you're next. Your question is about economic development. Navajo Nation wants to keep Navajo money on Navajo, yet many of our people continue to shop in border towns where they have access to big box stores, malls, diners. What are your thoughts and plans to bring these outside businesses to Navajo, which will keep Navajo money on Navajo?
First of all, we have seen that some of these have been tried already. Akot benina isi do jong koste business da benni gi ejo kaya do tax kwa gi ejo de ya trust land or ya de ya andi Washington be kaya hat e bina sheit anan shuko e ya jo enda de no ha late ya da bonet za do we need to figure out how they can access and make this possible and easy to establish businesses here. Adon de akon hipeso da hijande kesanagodo kitrako kon hano kinhindas nili kompeso da hijakodo nichen da iliego it's the big ha da hilni to da idado da nichato big ha panikhe aj enaltran da hilia khashine da en da hilia hoste Sanhana nil odor nil chunhin hi peso ajo hinte inal tragi koste sanhan da nil da koje peso be nad nil do na nis be nad nil do le ajon dita kon the business small business nigi kon jo bada te the flea market go japan da ini Edo hajo pa hodia, ko hajo betnas ago, ado ot shaj ado diskas the has tran hajo kimbanas nilo. Akunne eya benadia neshja do list alla la das lido benadia adne sago eya akunne eya na nashishin la shiot edo bakal dado ejo ta e peso ben nad nilo le ya.
Dr. Dolly Manson. Next, Earl Sombrero. Your question relates to commissions. Navajo Hopi Land Commission on the former Bennett Freeze area and Navajo Hopi Land Commission has been in existence through several administrations, yet we haven't seen any accomplishments. If you become president, what are your plans to improve the functions of Navajo Hopi Relocation Office, specifically the former Bennett Freeze area?
Tidat au nat ani adolag anajao the net anden bio yosino and I Sedan lay the nappage na hot day that native or tail by the north that a by the night here to the by a tick or daily dot era. Shiko a yat a new day the net outreaching Yana rato, babies has ado, babies of what a he could the done tap at the dish. Hada babies thousand. Paid outreaching or needle outreaching a canava. Okoye nachi yahato zito zata tehit au ado enda eya adetos ni hit au ya na ito khaniki jo be ad the neke hateni jo lanso e ban sas case oko she kwai go edo de to di khai ban sen case do ni do e an rage aje ta bagani aje ke hateni ki e an ta no be the dishni Hada e aji the Navajo Abbey because Ado baby and the Husky. Do a yahid out a hash at all. Zeniki Kato Yacht, Kito Yatato Nike, it's a half kiss all day. Joe went out a yapo nets. And they had it that the net kitchen needs quite get a hunting behind do a door needs. Hada it over that Kito, Kito Yana, Joe Kata, Oko Jodo de Quinzeno the neck hat and Nijo after Boston now yard A Johnson, she says in the hair. Fly got the set that is shine.
Earl Sombrero. Emily Elson, your question relates to resources and development. Several certified chapters are operating under alternative form of government. If elected, would you support a township government, or is there something greater and better? 2 minutes.
Yeah, Dave. So when we approach economies and economic development, we want to try to control things. You look at the Navajo Nation government, it's a centralized economy. They determine where your resources come from and where it's going to go. What I support is free enterprise and free markets. And so the barrier that we have there is with our lands. We have our home sites and their leasing processes. We don't own that land, we just have a lease to it. So we need to go back to the United States government and say, we need that title. We need to have ownership of all the resources that are connected to it. You look at agencies like Tuba City here, they've exceeded all levels of achieving a government, and now they want to go further. We need to support that spirit. We need to support that spirit of this community. Whatever revenue that is generated should be reinvested in that community because its leaders are the ones that were able to produce that environment. When we talk about economics, we have to understand that economy is a Western concept. It's not an indigenous concept. It is exchange of values. We talk about different types of industrial complexes. That's the name. There are 17 of them out there. You've got animals. You've got education, childcare, all of this, healthcare. We can release that to the individual entrepreneur. What they do need is they need infrastructure, they need an ability to access funds. Right now, when you access funds, you go to a bank. The bank's gonna say, what's your credit score? What collaterals do you have? Just to start a business, you need to have that cash up front. So when we look at our governments, that's the exact same thing that we need to give them. We need to give them authority over their own community resources. Thank you.
Elson. Next is Greg Bigman, and your question is health and education. Healthcare has always been an issue on Navajo Nation. If you become president, what are your plans to improve healthcare on Navajo?
Thank you for that question. Here at Tuba City, you have a very good healthcare system. Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation. This is a 638 corporation that is investing back into their community. They're looking to build a cancer center. They're also building a senior center. This is the desire of the community with what's being provided. And so market is driving demand, not government. So decentralization is very important. So part of healthcare is making sure that our facilities, we have local control over it, local empowerment. And so this means that all IHS facilities can eventually migrate towards 638. Secondly, is creating a structure, administrative process in terms of how can we start to simplify that process and improve services. This is through an Indian managed care entity, IMCE. What this will allow is 100% reimbursement to our healthcare facilities. Secondly, we have to have these facilities utilize our Navajo healthcare system, because one of the things I think is that all our Navajo members can have a Navajo Nation insurance benefit, because a lot of it is being processed off Navajo and we're paying millions of dollars for it. So this is something that we can easily recapture and use to help our people. So the IMCE will help with the 100% reimbursement for Medicaid and Medicare. And it's a simple administrative process of just signing a letter and telling the states that we want to do it. And this is a true control of Navajo executing its sovereignty. Go ahead.
Mr. Greg Bigman. So we move forward to another question, and this question is for all candidates, and you will have a 4-minute time response. So before we go into that, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Jeremy Baca. He's taking care of the time for the candidates. Otto, we have Michael Begay. He's in charge of the sound system, along with Nelson Cody. They're taking care of the sound system. Otto Nana, Mike 6 Killer. And we continue to increase our numbers with online listeners through the Western Navajo Fair Facebook page. Listeners, so we move on. The next question with a 4-minute time response. And this question applies to all candidates. If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days? Mr. Frank Dayish, you can start.
Selaf Sona, Anni Bahasi, Na Kigone Hijokata, Eya Niza Behonezna, Aroshilo Selaf Son, Snedishnova Hanasse, Eya Ade, what Eden, Katehonte, Enik, Nekad, or whatever they know. But Yahan is called the Shiko. Yahid Asheh Benetha, Behiyaro, Dakat, or what he, Yaha, another desk. Ako iyaha image and han kada to shin instead that boy you iyaha sada so each a hodan no one zao ho jishiko a koi iyaha ibe bakadija aron da iyaha hawan asha has tuido sani johot and she one still she sada so dan leo any like sada bahani zin basi aron da aba jo ba dan han da has kayo jo a komkat oh what say hot aban zakis Sha'eya Ebis Az again Ladahas Kaiho, Bogan Bedos Kanda, the Hobebich and the Hui now. But our Eya Ebabin that is the short eye by a Kiko. Nana Kikon Eya Edi Hawan, has Aneke. This last soba has see Hagi Shekaya Hahozo, Hagi Shekas no, Jot out send up a deck, the Poquebe Bakadija. This chain the herd act with yell, Yahid I time and how Anhe Hajosa Betan how did I said that the nation, a coy Yaben that is the short eye by a day to open the hole. Nana of Tahas Anegi Ani Nite Kit An Nid Ashabasits in Badiago, not Iro Ashabadiago, and they head start out, Aron they would the Ifkagina Kizata, don't know what it. Kitchen Kodoha Shimpes the Ja the Hard Shin Destra, what the old Taigi Dan no, Competence Anigi Koebadaudi quite us cut all this. Aron the Yakon song, he's a boat, Egi A Kato. John Ivan Zahakis, Aron the Dios has Anigi, no a key by a key, a cone kitchen, Pada the Geo, Hoy had us tidy a key, no batch hot. Oh, she needs Loza Hajo, Kodoni, and not Dasha, where it has another eat ash, became now these needs or Yahid by Yaki open Zao, Jishiko, a quay Benny Kadoja, with Ashadi, the Jota that did Neho, Aroba has said so the Zen, Zenege, said that just the snow. Aron the Tonas Kanda the snow benny Jahasi, Aqua has Anigi Hashit, a short Anana Sada, Kayapana hit Aro, but then now Abadazne, the Hido Honit, Ero, the Cons Twisan in the Hasagi, a joy Kayapanda had but our Yahaka to a bendy, Kapedasadi, but our Yaha Nash Benadi, Kashot, our Yavanza, Kesako, Aron the Divo, Jishigito. 16 divisions, Aron the 16 enterprises, this change, what that when I had a shako battles, Nick, Abe, Kate, Cow, what outputs that the didn't never have a cardija, Junda the based on Lenny of Padon Abit that dead, John Our Yahaban Zahakis, based on some unbetten that dish, Nishigi Eba that the youngest, Aron that beans at the hunters at the French days that are known in the Shitador, she's a girl.
Nana Keha, Mr. Frank Dayish. Same question, if elected, what would be your top 5 priorities and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days? Ms. Frankie Davis.
Yes.
I think first of all, I'm going to say, there's only one thing that all of us need to understand. It doesn't matter which one of us up here becomes the president, as long as we remember that we cannot do this without God. We cannot accomplish anything without the Holy Ones. That is so critical. And here, like I said before, the council prays and then they fight. We pray and then we treat each other. You need to be humble. Khaleit Ede Navajo Nation Council in Sata, the Neta de Rosho. How can you think with your heart when you're yelling? How can you remember how your people are doing out? Namasana Donihiche, Khaleit Bansira case, Ede Dada Rosho, Ashide Danaseno, Dide Nkida Alo. Ako, you need to be right. That is critical. Mine is mainly on independence. Complete independence. Complete control of our natural resources. It is critical. We have no funds. Again, I'm repeating the same thing. We have a GDP of 10 billion a year. We say, hey, Kujishonez, where is it? Where's the transparency? Why do we have to keep saying that? Ado, Hade, Shabe, Sodide, these 14 people, where are they going to get it? In my life and in my presidency, we are not only going to cut the umbilical cord from Congress, we are going to be alone. We are going to learn to take back our own country, be a nation within a nation, and stop groveling and stop having dependency. We need to do for ourselves. That is true sovereignty. I hate that word. It's true independence. So we will be able to have our natural resources as a strength. Prayer, again, a strength. We need to be aware of each other and our needs. If you want the money and the freedom and to own your own land, vote number 9, Frankie Davis, and work with me because I love you. Ayona shnishitane. Anhe nakhaish chago. Nakhatsu the sino. Egni na kwasize. Amado asa do amasan nishte. Shijeholo. You are so important. Remember that. Ahya.
Ms. Frankie Davis, Adam Nas Holjish, President Nez Kwage, same question. If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
All right, thank you for that question. You know, 4 years ago, Dina Khiyan Dan Lego Tadi Khab Nemki Amakab, Kha Nazana Hadasto. Nihini jahata so zi di na dani zin to naskadol ning besh chi kun naskadol hagan dal na dole na khat shin ba peso da halon dole le hotta dol kha arbana na shidiklo ye masani hit sheni na do akho ba da huyan dole nursing home das na dole no aro ko bina shindi fulfilliousness e kuje na khat shin ning da khaygi kodo you can't not go without an anish and la our economic development as anjan anish adol no ba yada ke jo o khayushi kodo da na do mos arts ko ba tish jo rafo o haile da the wheels will be spinning no ba na jo hota akko dish la do but the shot no without any you know, right now, for infrastructure, $2 billion has come to the Navajo Nation. We are in the opportune time now to bring our Navajo people home, ladies and gentlemen. Jobs are going to be created. We signed the law. They're building skyscrapers for other people. They're working for other tribes out there. Now is the time to bring them home for infrastructure. $2 billion would bring a lot of our people home, and they can stay home. Because what they say is, there's no water where I'm going to go back to. There's no electricity. Now they're going to build that for each and every one of us. Scholarship. You know, 4 years ago, right before the pandemic, we introduced a $50 million scholarship. And then the pandemic came, and our focus was on saving lives. I saw many of you out there on the front lines. You know, I see Shundeen Parish here on the front lines being Miss Navajo for 2 years out there handing out food and supplies. You guys saw us on the front lines. And that's what we wanted to make sure that you were comforted and knowing that your leaders were out there. This scholarship that we were proposing, $50 million, you know, some of you know, it's income-based, right? And you get denied. This $50 million wouldn't be income-based. And those of us that have student loans, we could repay those loans. All you need to do is work here on the Navajo Nation. That's one way to bring our Navajo people home, ladies and gentlemen. I talked about the nursing homes as well. We just approved the legislation over $50 million, right, Odo? For the Chinle Veterans Nursing Home, for our warriors, so that we can keep them here on the Navajo Nation. Tuba City, another nursing home that we're proposing. Social services, missing persons, putting money for the prosecutor's office so that there can be more help there. And I know my wife has been on the front in pushing early childhood education with the Diné Action Plan that was developed. Behavioral health. We need more rehab centers here on the Navajo Nation, and we are going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, with your help. Economic development, that's the 5th one, to bring our people home. Changing the federal laws, and we have that open door policy with the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
President Nez. Next is Mr. Justin Jones. Same question. If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
When I'm elected, the people would have spoken to say that we need a change in this government. The people would have spoken to say, no more of this. Don't cut it all this. Jinleta Tikit Ehat no quiz Date out later been Shishnish, Bedani, Nisha, Hadisham. That's what the people would have decided. We need a change in the government means that Chidita need to go shot on Austin zone, the Kodoha Hitchwad and Queda Educate and Nani so send out the key himself once. Educate and Jondo the transmission that needed all it, all pen that needed all it. When you want to change to something new, you don't take the old transmission and put it into your new vehicle. You have a complete new vehicle. Number 1 is that yesterday I walked with the veterans from the fairgrounds to the council chambers. I walked with them yesterday. Hey, what's up? How many times and how many years are we going to spend saying the same old thing? Yes, I listened to you. Yes, this way. Today, the veterans have been pleading with my little brother over here, the president of the Navajo Nation. Fire Mr. Zerwillen. But he is not doing it. I can hear. I don't get these change. Now, Akoya ended that day. What happened to the last 3.5 years? What happened to the last 4 years? What happened to the last 8 years? Then the legislation increases out of the court on that day. Shani Atashinta, this is the change that you're going to see. This is a priority. According to the Shnoni, Kahoishan, a Tindin, they don't have the net, Hindiatas, they call them. Should not Nadin, they don't know what net should not. He said, but Kedo Yana, Yada, Atoy at King the one. Not a holiday, yon Khadakhli yode dozai kwege BIA betkin e navodish betkin e khari betkin no pana as de dode. Don't ashin zag e kut edole khatin do. If I'm elected, it's going to change. Deep down, it's a change. These are real issues that you have to get here on. The Bebenal sauce, they know that the Bayegas, they know the Bebenal sauce, and now Kondas they. Den Hiesen Asche, die Hütte Benche, da hat noch Schinan Schreib. Der Becher hat noch. Und sie sind sagen, der noch Hunde Heschke. Und der Chile da, der noch agriculture, but I think why are we not selling our sheep to the locals? Why are we not selling that? Why are we not contracting with the hay producers down south? We have water rights. No, those guys can't even use the water rights down there. But the rich people use water rights to grow their grass. But we have to pay the subsidies over here. These are the kind of things that are real issues that are pertaining to us. Small business. How come we're not prioritized? How come we don't award Navajo contractors first preference? Let's make the law compliant. Let's go by the law. The law already says that, but we don't. The rule of law. On the shikar.
Nana Ikeha, Mr. Justin Jones. Same question to Dr. Dolly Manson. Question, if elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish within your first 100 days in office?
Okay. Yananat eshikedo shidene ishashi eyana kikone dasenta deep and so. Oh. Na kikone yokkato ni. Ako the first 100 days. Ashadod nito. Ishane nitiki eya. Besh patas ane danade nespinigi na di ishla ego khanako hajo betlash nishtole adeshli kote betlateneshpil. And I will work with every member of the 25th Navajo Nation Tribal Council. I will know how to work with them professionally. We need to get a lot of work done. That's what I would like to accomplish the first 100 days. And then other things that I would like to do are to, we would need to research entrepreneurs, such as an example is NTUA. NTUA, ko ilo topic and I yedane, ni ko da hosago, hatishe ben yedila da yo eletane, hadet awe yo elingo kok and he and a lot of Navajo people, a lot of the elderlies are on small income. Alchedogon da halia, bejenda ilia, hashit awe huta. According to NTUA, the Jelini does other enterprises, and out the North is another dot Hatisha and now what other Zapoy young best of it in George and Haden. Out over the house Nihida, there's over Lagana than Lovin in art and Schneck. Eight another Hokon hit the Nato, you the ice tight, the Hondoman, Eshe Hada, take over Lagana Konda Nasta. Adon dako nege ya missing. Ako nege ya missing and murdered indigenous woman of Yekon Nahalchinesani da Shchin da Sada Ego Hachin da Lito the Beta Hayozita. I will collaborate with the missing and murdered indigenous women and build a criminal crime unit for them and house with effective investigators. Not Kahido forensic science of Yehagido investigators, Ajindad, Nashido FBI, the Dan Lindgi, Hajobet has Eko, Nishidenedo, the Beta Hoyozingi, De Kato, De Cadedo, Eda. Adon de Nana Yatzilze, I will start working with the state, the county, Patol, nature aids il zegi tok adnahi tla khahatol, jishkhala idin humana Hassan and we want to beautify our land so then we can say Hojon we shot hunting and again once more. It's add on that disability. We have a lot of people that are mentally, physically challenged. And we have disabled people. The wheelchair that they have a Sebi the Jehi de Yisha Baganda Hatten. Edo Hajo, Quake Bahas Auto, Nispa, Tapeso Banto, Giado, Bon Nishape Bahayano, Baby, this Edo education there. She have a master's degree in special education. Ado Kutaba Wanizi, and I had a father that was a quadriplegic. Edo Banacho Kutaba Wanizi. He has education in that position too, Dr. Dolly Manson.
Dr. Dolly Manson. Jonah. So audience, we now have more than 500 listeners online. Thank you. The listeners is coming in from Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma, and Texas. So thank you, listeners. Next, Dr. Boo Nygren, same question. If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities? And which of these would you like to accomplish within the first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
Aro khoya sasonlegi do chuno pestaos agi head relation sin financial das gosi ye go benda soslen son sitile ano tene khoya benda soslen sigiro tsere be hadistigi le nan nishadno chato nan nishta indishi khalet ola ndas lishgi na hodo likto peso ya nahi tehigi khajod no it somansis case akolle da ashjagi donle nan nishtan tsagi da da has anagi khajob khiat ke do khajoda khalet ola tsinesji da has thanigira peso ya nahin tehigi e khajona da io biga tonse juk ade do yo peso ya nahin tehigi khaishe binina ho hot et stilo de ebinina I is a tsabi hadis arona kigone bayat ki aita ani tene hajoba da huniti thodo besh chi dal dol te to hawanda bentat no sto team khaish benina khaila benina do khoya hot egi hajodan no it bez ani na zetel Washington da zete hona da hajo bande obiga ton centrale kadle Washington at tasadanda dem halen are ash honan bijnain ka choreograph pit de zin tab no esho anne for the Junobin de liston so khaishe benina do hajo bet nicht anni beha ziti peso bejamada yage ni hishe bekada yage en de shido hajo das khar shinda da do lit negi kan hot eran da just khashimi ga to ne e hot o nasta hajo bet de kanso aro thago ne bahadis tege de salao because anigi do khaishe benina thake kyona salao tai or the mobis kanida tai do shikhat et do EMS do first responders khajona net il khajob be sabad yago kade khojin dat neshe khojin nada nishge do be khajo khojin dat nisharo labinane il khojin de nishe an mehi do de e hoton kham bindish so aro digo ne bindish nishge Nikhetlohot, Egi, Nsakestot, Atsis Natsigi, Khajot Edozin, because at this very moment in time, we do not have our own treatment centers on the Navajo Nation, and we need to invest in that because that is one of the most important things. Alcohol is taking our people by the thousands every single year, and we are not making an effort to put an end to that. So thousands of our people go every single year. So Ado Ashlagon Evan, this case, the Nebo Washington, Hajo, Edethno, be the Zinsen, Kadedo, Tun Nest is the Hajo, if not Nishigi, Hajo, not Inarop is on in Kitchihota, the lead, Jai Tabana, Haishebina, the Nebanan, Ahaban, Garo, Shane, the case is zero, there's not Ani Danafini, Hodia, Kita Hotneo, Edethno, Ado let the never Washington the base on the Neligi Haishmanina the hotel's daughter, Dina Sos, Hojanada, Arno Bahosina, Edo Dadole, Hajot and Leaf if dear at Hota Hitledo. Thought I had never given in Haishina, get the Nebachin, Tahois, Navigator, Tato, dear, this G, the base behind there, don't let patients in case he has draw, it has no been that just no yet. Yes, been that listen. So out of the never at the house in the net job, Papitan, what any does, this of the Stahol zone does, this Ehoto, Areta, it has no, position number 5, that will need to let Dr. Good night in the cat.
Dr. Blue Nigren. Online listener, we just received information that we have listeners from Ireland. And we're maintaining mid-500 listeners. Next, Mr. Greg Bigman. Question, if elected, what would be your top 5 priorities and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
Yeah. A vote for Greg Bigman is a vote for giving the people the power. The important part that I talk about is decentralization. This is part of government reform. We talk a lot of times up here, we hear about government corruption. Part of it is putting systems in place and making sure that we have processes that are very clear and transparent. You know, there's a lot of meetings that happen on Navajo and we don't hear about it. Second thing is providing that local support that I talked about. And this all requires working with council. The second part is capital projects, making sure that we can move things. I talked about it, having vendor villages, rodeo arenas, sports complexes, youth complex, and roads. These are things that are important not only for an investment into our youth, but investment into our communities. The money is already there. It's just knowing how to leverage it and use it so that way we can maximize its benefit. Third thing is business development. I talked about business development. Healthcare, that's the easy one, low-hanging fruit. The 2 others are livestock and agriculture. When I worked on the forage livestock range insurance, which is called a drought insurance, there's about $94 million in that account now. And this is going to be used for the next priority. It's water security. It's ensuring that our people will have water for the next few generations. With this, we can build dams. We can build earthen dams as well. Traditionally, a lot of elders, they talked about how they secured their water, and they didn't need anybody to tell them that they needed right-of-way approvals. Simplifying the process as well as part of government development, ensuring that local communities do have that support. The last part is public safety. Having a crime unit is key. You know, I think when I talked about making sure that we have a good government, I talked about the coordination of government, business, and public safety. Those are the key 3 factors. So in public safety, another thing is reforming the courts, because our courts are the bottleneck. And so what we have to do to free it up is give local control and decentralize some of them. There's no need for traffic tickets to be taken up to district court. This can be handled locally at administrative court. Way back in the day, I used to hear that they would go down to the chapters, and that's how they would settle disputes with their local leaders. This is empowering our local leaders to have a voice within the community because people respect them. Secondly, it's about having development programs for officers, making sure that when they're going through their training that they can be paid. It's also about having a database, monitoring our borders and ensuring that we also have some mentorship programs that are in place. So giving the people the power is a key part of government reform and ensuring that we can have a better life and a better future. Ensuring that each of the communities here can build upon their hopes and dreams. That's what I envision for our Navajo Nation, and those are the 5 priorities that I have for our people.
Mr. Greg Bickman, Adam Nas Holshish, Ethel Branch, Question: If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
Hello. The first one is government reform. I want to bring our nation into the 21st century. It's time for us to have an awake government that is fighting for our people to improve the lives of our people. So that takes 2 forms. Large-scale government that is a Diné government designed by and for the people. The second one is small-scale, immediate measures we can take without any legal changes. That is administrative practices, procedures, stuff that the president can get done immediately. The second priority in terms of bringing our nation into the 21st century is infrastructure, modern day infrastructure. It's a matter of human rights that our people be treated the same as any other American. The next point is establishing an entity in our government that is capable of rapid emergency response in the face of climate change. This is especially important. In the face of an ongoing pandemic, this is especially important. Our case numbers from the last week are at almost 800. This pandemic is not backing down. We need to remain vigilant and be responsive. The next component is bringing healing to our people. We're learning in this boarding school inquiry how deep the impacts of boarding schools have been for our people. We have significant intergenerational trauma in our communities, whether that's from the boarding schools and the impact that had on transmission of culture to the next generation, or just in the strength of the fabric of our families, when our children were stolen from their households and weren't allowed to come back until they were adults. And then we're also survivors of refugees and prisoners of war. We've never dealt with that trauma. We need to bring healing to our broader community. We can do that utilizing our own tools. For example, for dispute resolution, let's use a Diné model of dispute resolution, such as our peacemaking courts, instead of using Western courts. We already have the solution, a Diné solution. So let's use that, and let's make sure that our peacemaking system has all of the tools they need, access to pull in mental health services, behavioral health services, and let's make sure that the folks on the front line, our officers, are well resourced. We have less than 200 patrol officers. We need more than 700. So let's get that number up there to protect our communities. The next aspect, the final aspect, is land reform. We need that in 2 different ways. We need the rural land reform, so grazers have an opportunity to allow the land to heal, and so that our people have access to capital. We have 27,000 square miles of land that is Navajo sovereign territory because of our people, because we saw the treaty territory and we ignored it. We went back home. We created facts on the ground. We forced law changes to respect what was Navajo territory. So let's respect the power that the people have with their rights to the land. That will flip the balance of power from the government back to the people. What do I want to do in the first 100 days? Number 1, get that government efficiency task force off the ground. Identify the low-hanging fruit and pursue it. And then also with respect to government reform, go out to the first 30 chapters and talk to you, Diné people, about what you want to see in your government. Talk about how we can reform it to be a Diné government. That way we can move forward in this process immediately. In terms of infrastructure, let's get water lines in our community. Right now we have unsettled water rights in Arizona. That means we are the superior claim on the river. Everybody else should be asking us permission to use our water. Right now that's all Navajo water. Let's act like it. Yeah.
Ethel Branch. For your information, I just received message news that we have listeners from New Mexico, New York, and Denmark. Ado nas hodges Emily Elson, question, if elected, what would be your top 5 priorities and which of these would you like to accomplish in 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
Yeah, when I graduated from high school, I left for college at American University in Washington, D.C. At that point, I started interning for Congressman Tom Udall, who then became a senator. And one of the tasks that he gave me, he said, Ellison, you go to the Senate Appropriations, Indian Appropriations Committee, and you listen, you take some notes. So I went to this Senate Appropriations, or Indian Affairs Committee, and I met Senator Daniel Inouye, the late senator. And I had a conversation with him about sovereignty, tribal sovereignty. And he says, the United States government, we're doing everything we can to respect your tribal sovereignty. The issue is, when is your government and your own community going to regulate yourselves? We haven't done that yet. We still have corruption. We don't follow our laws, we don't follow our rules, we don't follow our policies. We talk about how much the U.S. government has hurt us. Yes, they have. But they give us so much money every single year. How much money do we give back to them every single year? So at this point, we need to talk to ourselves as Navajo people. How are we going to keep ourselves regulated? How are we going to make ourselves follow our own rules? We need our courts. We need to give them those resources. We need to make it easier to punish people who abuse the process and other individuals. One of the first things that I'll work on when I become president is a 164 review process. That process is too long. They give out contracts and they say, we're going to award you here in 30 days. A whole year passes. We have small businesses that we owe millions of dollars to, and they don't want to work with us. That's why the cost of business on Navajo is so high. I will upgrade the computing system of the Navajo Nation government. Why travel all the way to Window Rock if you just want a boating permit? If you want to order your CIB, you should just be able to get that off the internet. I will work with the Chapter Club C committees to design our community so that we can have homes for our children close to where we're from. All chapter employees that have ever been listed in the Navajo Nation Auditor General report for misconduct will be released in the first 100 days of my service. Our courts, we need to address that. The crime, 3 years statute of limitations need to be changed to a lifetime, and that will be enacted as soon as I get in there. Within the first 100 days, Navajo language will become the official language of the Navajo people. And we're going to put 15% of the annual Navajo Nation budget to support that, because we respect our language, don't we? I'll initiate conversations with the U.S. government to talk about 2 major issues. Our trust relationship. We should have complete authority over our subsurface minerals and how it's going to be utilized. And also to renegotiate and hold power on the Major Crimes Act so that we can punish our own perpetrators in our own courts. And all money that is donated to the Navajo people in the name of the Navajo people need to produce financial reports. Those that include financial audits, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, cash flows, because those were donated for the Navajo people and they need to answer to the Navajo people.
Emily Elson, Jonah. Aron Nasnana Eya, Dr. Rosanna Jumbo Fitch. Question, if elected, what would be your top 5 priorities and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we've heard a lot this evening in regards to where our Navajo Nation government sits now, where the issues and concerns are sitting whether it's within a community project, whether it's a public safety, whether it's economic development, community development, natural resources. There's a lot of issues we know that have existed. The same issues have been in existence since I was a child. And it's time to change some of these. And when we start to look at the backbone on why all these issues currently exist, it comes down to that red tape, we call it. And we need to start to address that. That is why we have leadership. Leadership's job is to be able to look at each of those policies, procedures, laws, regulation, whether they're state, county, or within the federal government. It is our job to advocate on behalf of what the change we want, and it's our job to make those changes in writing to where our people can benefit most. So, if elected, the first 5 priorities, the first 100 days, I talk about starting with our youth. I want to be able to create the programs and fund those programs. Currently, right now, sitting at the chapter level, we have hundreds of kids that come in and say, how come you don't want to support my travel? How come you don't want to support my education? How come there's no money for me to travel to learn something to bring back to our people? That is going to be my #1 task, is to ensure we support our kids first. Right now we have Head Starts closed across Navajo Nation. Why? They're just growing weeds, the dust is piling, the buildings we paid for with our money is just going to waste. We have educators here in this room, online, that are willing to work, ready to work, and ready to help our children learn. That's #1. #2 is to be able to work within our Navajo Nation Preference Act. How many business owners have been selected on Navajo Nation Preference Act? How many business owners get a call that there's a project ready by the Navajo Nation? I bet half of you don't even get recognized. And that is a law that we need to start addressing, we need to start following, we need to start enforcing. We need to actually follow the laws we create. And with that, the preference, we need to pay our people the proper rates. If we're going to enact it, we need to hold those contractors and contracts accountable. And with the contracts, we need to start looking into the tax laws. Right now, we are double dipping. We are asking for more funding, but there's no accountability on where those funds go. It should be coming back to our people if we're going to be asking for more. #3, although we see the effects that our elderly have. We have people with health concerns. We have people that don't understand English. We have people that don't have access to travel, and we have strict funding. We need to be able to support them, and that can be helped at the local level, whether we increase housing discretionary so they can have a better home. Another item, 4, grazing home site lease. We need to be able to create a law to where we can have a beneficiary. I'm so tired of hearing probate. We need to make that so our children can move home. #5, housing programs. Why do we only have NHA? When we have a lot of people, men and women here, that can build a house, why can't we outsource to independent resources to where we can construct our own homes and be compensated to live here on Navajo? We have a lot of talented people, a lot of local resources, and we have funding available within our Navajo Nation government to support all these. So that is my goal and my promise to you, to ensure as leader we fulfill these priorities and we help to support our people. Yeah.
Dr. Fitch. Aro the Nas Nana Kon Earl Sombrero. Same question. If elected, what would be your top 5 priorities, and which of these would you like to accomplish in your first 100 days in office? 4 minutes.
I didn't get my certificate shut in. Our executive director, or Duran, and then Shar and your staff, your wonderful staff, who are putting all of this together, and for giving us wonderful food this evening. And we are the best in Western Nishnila. We always provide top of the notch for Campinas. 这个就从那个地道就把你就看你这里都知道的呀，เป็นละกันเป็นแท็กซี่เป็นหัตถ์นี่ทันนี่คนเจนี่เด็กก็ฮัสวีโดสานี่อาทิตย์เป็นเรื่องดักให้ดูอาทิตย์ที่อาหารดักนี่ที่เห็นเด็กค่ะอดีตอาหารสอบอยบิเขาเนี่ยเขาเชี่ยร้านเขาให้ขาที่จะได้คิดหาให้เราบ้านซึ่งเคสตัวนี้จะหัดโน้เองไหนที่เห็นนี่นกก็จะได้ตาโนเซนก็จะได้คิดหาให้เรานะคะโซ่โคสโตนะคะหดตัวนี้เซนชิดีดีจิโตชีโตดีสายินโตตาดีจะได้สมเป็นลาชลายอิลีก็บ้านสหเคสโตสาโอโหโตสาอัลลาโฮแกโหดปัสโซโฮโคสโตปะโหดตัวนี้จะได้เซลาจิโตนี้จนส่งบ้านเซสเคสดูอินเดตอียาขาดอีจะได้เนสนาตีนิสขานจะอียาดาฮัชจักอีลีจะหัดตัวอียาขานโซอียาจะได้ยาอีนีเบจเลเบชบังซาอันอียาบาทีโอลตาดินาตาตาหนขานะเลตีเด็ดน่าอินเซนิกียินยาตาอิโตนบิฮิกีขยีนาทาชีอัตคิโซยานเซคิสิกียินเซนิกีเดขันโซอัตติโออาเปฮิปตานข้าโหดโตเตตาโตนีเซโตเตตัวอินเดตาเป็นนักจิตโตเปฮัซอานิตสกจินตาโตคาสโตเปตาโตนิชตัวแต่นาทีนิชิโตนิฮิซาเกียติโตخالن خاصفين زاني أكيد زيهي تو إكيد تو لي خجو إيدي آلان خاود آلان زو إيه نحشي إيشا ننزل دو لا ننزل دو خجو بإنزل دو لي خالا إيزدا بإيات آتو لأتا يخنا تيد آتسون لي نزنا تين بي إثنات لي نلو إثنات لي وتدا خي آسدا نخاستوين هزاني آدتا نهازتا تو بلقان كاتشيكي تسايدو بلقان كاتشيكي أكو دا خجو باقني تزنوشيات تو إنسوبان سسكيس يات آتسون نخاناستو تيزة تي بيش تشي دولتي دادوت خطا دوت سيبي ناهي دي جيเป็นอาจจะจบปาตัดนิคิดอันนี้เนตาเกณฑ์จะโตอาจเนตาโตอาจจะโตคุยอาจเอาคนที่เขาจบมาคุยได้นอนสิขันโซตีเดนเรื่องที่สนาเดนเนตโตเขาจบมาคุยได้นอนสิคนโตตีนิชิจโคตรตัวอาจจะนะคะหัตถ์ตีลาโคโคตรไปเอาคนสหัสยาเดนี่เกโตตานตีที่ก็โจก็เอาตัวบ้านเซสเคสแล้วคนที่ได้จะโดนเลยที่เก็บโดนเลยอาจารย์คนนั้นยัดพัฒนาการเจตกับ
Mr. Earl Sombrero, we are now going to do 4 random name draws with a 2-minute response time to each question. Not only Kodan, 2 questions they done. So 2 random name draws. Jonathan Nez, President Nez Kwage, Nahol your question with a 2-minute time response. There are some ineffective programs under the divisions. How are you going to reevaluate these programs so they can improve and maximize direct services? 2 minutes.
All right, well, we have reestablished a new program under the Division of Social Services. When we came in as an administration, I let the division directors begin to update their plan of operations. There's another focus that we want to do. As many of you know, the Office of the Net Youth is within Doty, and it's almost at the bottom of the list. And then you have the aging program, which is in the Department of Health. And again, sometimes at the bottom when it comes to funding. The proposition there would be to take those two programs out and other programs and to develop a new division called the Division of Youth and Elders, where they can get directly the funding right off the top rather than have to wait for all the other programs and get their funding. So there are ways of streamlining the process, but again, you need to work with the Navajo Nation Council, and we've done that. And one of the things too I want to say while I have the time is that, you know, I take my oath very seriously. I took an oath to protect the Navajo people, not the people that just only voted for me, but for all the people. And that includes each and every one of you. During the pandemic, we didn't discriminate. We were out there helping each and every one of you. And the veterans that are sitting here today too, you took an oath to protect, you know, the citizens of this country and to support your comrades as well. And you don't throw them under the bus. And we also need to come together as a nation too and not throw each other under the bus. Thank you.
Thank you for the response, Dr. Jonathan Nez. Next, Ethel Branch. Your question is about health and education. Data tells us that the pandemic severely affected our students' education. If you become president, what are your plans to improve the issues? 2 minutes.
This is a subject that comes up frequently when I'm talking to our people. And certainly I've observed that. We had one constituent that we provided pandemic relief to where, you know, he's a high school student and all of his family members had passed during the pandemic. We had an extreme loss of life in our community. We've almost lost 2,000 people at this point. So, you know, there's that's happening in our community. And then additionally, we just have really tough health conditions in our community because our nation has been a national sacrifice area for at least a century. The reason why our council was formed was to sign off on an oil lease. And we've maintained that extractive legacy in our community that has led to extreme hardship in our community, you know, relocation of thousands of our people and no just result. And so that has had tremendous impact on the mental health of our people. Our relocatees suffer from higher rates of alcoholism and suicide and basically every health indicator imaginable. And meanwhile, our people are dying of cancer at 4 times the rate of other Americans because of the excessive uranium development in our community. So my plan is to focus very seriously on healthcare in our community, making sure that our healthcare services are performing at a high level. And I'm sorry to say, but our current facilities on Navajo Nation have a lot of work to do to improve service delivery to our people in terms of healthcare. In terms of mental health, we need to get that Today Action Plan in place and moving forward. The grant deadline for that is February, so that will be a #1 priority for me to make sure. That will give us access to significant funding for mental health services.
Branch. So from here, we are in perfect timing. Audience, let's applaud our candidates. Because you all did good. There was no yelling, we didn't have to call our security on you. But I would like to acknowledge our security. We have our lead security, Joe Dallas. We also have Anissa L. Watson. We also have Vic Daniel George. Thank you for providing safety and security within this special event. Adonana, the decorations did executive chapter manager. We have Duran Begay is our chapter executive manager. We also have Charlene Minigoats, who is our tax manager. We also have Kelsey Scott, who is she takes care of our money. We also have Byron We also have Gwen and Nelson Cody is our chapter planner. The chapter hired summer youth students, the summer youth employment. Hiram. We have Journey, Haley, Leela, Anna, Dog Hydrick. And Sanit, we have Pat Keone, Pat Uzine. She's the cook, she's everything at the chapter when we need something. She's been there with us for many years. Go ahead, Pat. The name Ina Flat Rock. Ina Uzine. She's our greeter and she directs traffic at the chapter. Ado and Danana we're going into our final question. And the final question will be posed by our chapter president, Gerald Keatso. After his questions, he will also give closing remark. So candidates, we from the chapter, for the people. Title 2 says, for the people, that's you all, by the people. So with that, moving forward, I'd like to introduce our chapter president, Gerald Keatso.
Presidential candidate, Senegi, Donana, Shikation, but when I'm doing my closing, I'm going to pose a question, and I'd like all of you guys to respond. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute, and this is going to be going across to all of you. Recently, I started to enjoy my retirement, and I've been doing some traveling out and about, and I've been up north a couple of times, and going to these other reservations. What I observe is we're not unique. How we are here to the city, the other communities, the Navajo Nation, these other reservations are the same. Why is it? And I've been thinking, driving, coming back, you come home, and then you look, and then you think back. It's exactly the same. And I think some of you that came to our chapter meeting that we gave you an open mic to, some of you guys heard me say this. Why is the reservations the same? The issues are the same. Everything that we talked about, everything that you guys brought out, roads, housing, everything, just like around here, the more and more I thought about it, what is common between the reservations? I think I sort of posed that question to some of you guys. What is common? And the more I thought about it, it's the federal government. The federal government is the only thing that's common to all reservations. So my question is going to be, do you feel the same? If you do, what are you going to do about it? It's obvious that the policy that they gave for us to work under is restricting everything that we want to accomplish and do. So I want to know, do you believe the same thing? If so, what are you going to do about it? That's my question. Then we'll just start from this end and we'll go all the way across. I'm going to give you 1 minute because time is short. Then after that, I'm going to be doing my closing bagisha. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Mr. Kitso. I love this question because it is right down my alley. And yes, we need to stop groveling to the federal government. They do not care about us. Ada, I always talk about Joe Shirley. That's all they give us. The syndrome. We have a problem because we keep saying, what is this? You're begging. They don't even take in consideration of all that we have in the treaties. They don't care. All across the board, every federally recognized tribe I've worked with, the same problem. Restrictions and red tape. We've got to get rid of the CFRs completely. Ridiculous.
Oh, I agree with you, and this is what I'm going to do about it. Number one is that we need to revisit our sovereignty. That's how we're going to get away from this dependency.
out edition so Shaban this case you do a strong take Hajohi now deo Asana Nanas was go bigatsen Ebe nationality Kajuk Adedo Skijin and Nesto Skiji Edon Choto Hajohi now dedo led Washington which indeed now it can handle Zin so much this case what all the never than asli when Peshma has an Hajobis and this show ye for the Nahot Egi Ani what oh Benyan Khada is the Ebichin we need to come back together as the Navajo Nation government and stand as one against the United States government to make sure that we are being treated as fairly as possible because as United Navajo Nation, that's a scary thing for the United States. So let's get back together in position number 5, Dr. Boone Igren.
don't really agree because there are some indigenous nations in this country that are doing extremely well. They have gaming operations, they're located near high population centers, so they're buying homes for their tribal members, they're doing incredible things. They're flexing their sovereignty in a really meaningful way, and they are transforming their economies. We can do that too, we must do that so that we have a future as a Diné nation, so we can bring our people home, so we can build homes in our community, so that our young, educated, our professionals, our retirees can come back to our community. We have a robust economy. It's just living elsewhere in this country and this world, contributing to other economies. So let's create a space for our people to come back home and enrich our economy. The Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development identifies 3 things that are the key to economic development in Indian country. I have built those into my platform. Number 1, true expressions of sovereignty. Number 2, capable government institutions. Number 3, cultural match in the government and ownership.
All right, I also say I have to disagree. You know why? Because nobody else on this great nation, on the whole United States and elsewhere in the world, can call themselves a Navajo. We are the only ones that have 4 clans. We identify, look at how strong we are, look at what our grandparents taught us, and look at where we're living now. We have the strength here within our own Navajo nation to call ourselves the We are moving forward every step that we move in the government, and we are making changes. It's not the change we want to see, but it is a change where we're progressing. And when we want to look forward into the future, look at who we are. Look at the people we've had in the past. They're the only ones that we could call upon when there was a war. We have Navajo code talkers. Nobody else could have spoken our language back then. Nobody else could break us back then. That's who we are. We are a strong people. We are going to continue to be independent, and we're going to find additional resources to where we can continue to move forward with our strength and our independence and be able to move our country forward with all of our people involved. Yeah.
Yana Teo, Ado in the Ayazata, Tani Heli, Aho Yato, Shikeshitine. The nanny Glenigi, Hanso, Niza, the Dinizenko, Ajope Gatekico, Ado in the Tanika or the E. Nihin Sakis, Nihin Nahat, Nika, not Nisa, Nika Southern, Nihin Sotazen, Nihin Yin, Salaha, Hajo, at Hinel Soto. Ti ne yado peta na hoti iko jo mat out e po netza ai ga anan deneki ni ke mo ato ni ke hotel ana jo e dischet e ke khayita ko e ya ani ta do ba ko ni zendo do ba wi chita e ba ko ni zi ko hajo den nancy le o peta na hoti yo te po netza.
Yate. All tribes, over 556 tribes in the United States, same economic structure. We don't have economic rights, we don't have individual rights, we don't have property rights. So we're talking about economic behavior right now. What motivates you to do something? Why would someone work really hard and not reap the profits? Those are some things that we have to talk about. Every single tribe in the United States does not own the land, does not own their home. Everything is leased. So we're talking about an economy that's foreign to the Navajo Nation. So when you look at these homes, what is the motivation to build that? It's to provide for your families, but at the same time we want to market. So when you're investing in a property, how do you play with the value? How do you create a benefit? The economic structure is the same. We need access to our resources, we need to own our...
Thank you for the question, Mr. Quito. You are right. And the reason is, I studied this, and an economic roadmap was prepared in lieu of what you talked about. The federal restriction is the land status. Off the reservation, you can leverage your land. and you can say, I'll mortgage my land to buy equipment for my farm. On Navajo, you can't do that. So this restricts land valuation and development. But we have new tools in our war chest now. We have a Section 17 company that we can use to decentralize BIA, get the approval for land lease away from the BIA government. Secondly, we have new land statuses, such as restricted fee land, where we can use. Lastly, we have wealth and investment opportunities, such as hub zone and accelerated depreciation. But also, the last one is that our government interference is also playing a role in terms of keeping our people down, separating the haves from the have-nots. Ahead.
I like to disagree and agree. Okay, I know some tribes in this country that are doing very well. A tribe in Florida, they have their own, they don't have a reservation, but they have all kinds of economic development rolling. And then the reason why we are in this situation is because the white people came, or long ago back in 1492, when Columbus came, and everything started there. And they wanted, when they came in, more and more coming in, wanted us to become something else like them. So that was their path. And once we have all become them, then that we would all be humans. But now, no, that was not the case. But up in Hitchcock, Washington, Hitchcock, their reservation, and we need to change that. We need to go back to our teachings and our language and revitalize our.
Thank you for the question. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are 406,000 strong. We are growing, and we are the great Navajo Nation. We need to go to Congress, we need to utilize our leaders here to change some of those laws. It seems like we just utilize the same old laws, and we complain every election. You know, we have developed some protocols that are in place, and we have developed a white paper to change some of these regulations. And in the bipartisan infrastructure law, some of those right-of-way process has been changed. Elections are important, ladies and gentlemen. The U.S. President, Congress, and the Navajo leaders, and even in the state of Arizona. And that's why we introduced to you a candidate that's running for Arizona governor. Those individuals need to be put in office that have the heart for the Navajo Nation, and not all tribes are the same, but we
Kan hier gedi zillo. Ahot out they don't need. Aaron has children bend that they need tree. Executive order bend that is nesh. Sadat so bahayadole. Astrido sani bahayadole. No sefe bahayadole. Aaron the hido and that yo nefigin bahayadole. Aaron the kitsotes bend ka edo ben bahayadole. Around the compass of Ayat Launch that no hard lesson net Hershey to T Benado Tiji Beso Yan, Eya Enal Kagi, Eya Kenteta, and Hikwate, Navajo Nation Bank that evening, Adi Yahadon, Ebe that evening, John Ivan Zakis, Around the things are down the center, bring days that don't know you on the city of sheet again.
There is so many other questions that we came up with, but because of the time restraint, we just kind of pick and choose what we thought was going to be really necessary to ask of you guys, the potential Navajo Nation president. Equite Shanako. Again, you just need all this. Shea Gerald Kitso on Shia. Kodo tonest is a doista. Zedishki the nanshla. Kodo the quishi de what are they? Didishike, no senigi, Kodo, Arch, but Zedishki in Medina. Ado Kodo for this, look at the net, what something the Tani, or one son, Hashkishni, A&K, a cash only. So the question is about how Zico should Sicilian a Ocean. Tanisani, and I should I could be the 20 that should say 20 changes that should not record. Yat Edo Kedi Dole, Kodo, Hano Yagi, Bekegi Ego, Do the Queen Shin with Adi Yanahano Ya. A Korea had it sneed on the square. Hotel that it did need. Dona would out there. Benigati needed credentification the man of sending it on of its home. Or need, Domic on Hano Yapwag. A social cane of sensitive keg with a Yakadian Hidin needle leg. Nishi, Naha, they got deed of the Nahas Honey Kushtan need. We've seen shitty that this is this will be my fourth. Later night, kid, to I significant east in the heart, and the heart, so the Hatila Yedina, Joe Tedina, they would was standing in up, Hardan Zajan Kitchen outdoors. Aro Yabiket over teeth. So whatever la sa case la, whatever la de source la. Whatever they are hitch is Chaido least in need. Ebony na whatever they are was stabbed in need. Dona na I think he yet our queen shay yet we was in yakodo I see because they think that they caught against that case open hata. Ebony na they would tell they are a kid need. Akodeya Akot Kadeya the kid who was next to K should a nan of Fennegy. Is not sound which a whole G, Donana lay the house in Sino with Adeya. City sound art and Eskino Soto. Hey, Kodet didn't Hani Yagi. Bizarre and hot and Sekis, yes, a dot sound. Kodon hit the East Channel, Nikito Besteda. Nihini hold me to Obadana, Nihini hold me. Heshi Batsi so legishi, Heshi Anni, Anni, and then the Tishit and would take or dance at our case. Anni. Near Yashik, the land, the net, the Nenigi, Bakati Shush. Bagan has Ago, and the Darts, Jokotashi, and Sakis in Nade, Yashudo, Letine. I could end the Heshi Kunet North Garthia, Nishin Hasan, Laisha Shike, Shidan of Shenigi. I could Aisha, the young and Yehustan, Yakti, Nikodo, the young nature Hatzi, Ako, Tika the Quiz Kande Yahatzi. Hagoshinata this Kaha, Deshitana sails into this. In the day of thy rally, Sakudeya Nanabush Kantole, Shikate, Shidan of Shenigi, Hahol Jija, Nakode, what are ye had seated? Shape of all day, you're going to hit the schnee or less. The net out of a shadow, I don't able to pizza. Edo, that I Kerhidina, as Hajini Ba, as Hajo Baholgegi Ebe, Hunza the day Yaki, Nashmi, Unity, the very heart of all this. As Hajin of Baashoda, Sad Aha, Evo dan Sakis Ido, that to Ebony get a deeder, but then asked Hanagi, Nikadish. She says, Zenny with our answers case. Whatever you get, they had a car. to hotel de ya nature de ya taski ni hipkodo ashodan hidishna benachni isha shike shidana no senigi khat with a taksat adis that all this with otta pajo pa chenda hol isha with ya nana hosh kanto le ba khazani isha ado de ya teto shire kwen khano ya ko ekotego kuisha. To all of those of you that are online listening in, I really want to say thank you, and we appreciate you coming on and listening to this forum right here. I thought in closing, I did this with all the Nekoda and I thought Yahoo, Peter Berg is in the the realize the last chapter meeting that you guys came up to, it was just an idea that I spoke, and then the staff at the chapter said, let's do it. So we kind of got together. The more we thought about it, the task was just so overwhelming. Can we do it? We talked about it for a day. And then we said, I don't think it's going to happen. The school wasn't coming back to us with the request we gave, so I think some of you guys heard that. Yen, the staff right here, the students that we have, they came back to us and said, no, let's do it for the community. Not just Tuba City community, but the Western. So then we regrouped, and Mr. Bicycler was running around here. He got all the tasks, who's going to do what, all that. So that's how we were able to put this together. So I'd like to also say thank you, and I appreciate the staff at the chapter. Hey, we were just invited over here. Like me, they told me to sit out there and greet you guys when you guys were coming in. So, President Nez of Ecco, Yate Arnoldson, Nahano Yagi, Anle, who is on there from New Mexico, Hashin Zatede, without the Yanhano, Kai Yanle, Washington, D.C., that behind the Asian, but I really appreciate this Isha. So that's how they are here in Kidini or those of you that are new here, if you never been in here, we packed this house when the Warriors were playing, especially years back when Tuba Warriors took the state championship 2-3 years in a row. So this is the home of the Warriors. So welcome here. Donana here to be new to the city high school. So so I'm going to turn the mic back over to the MC. Go ahead.
President Kitso, John Bodea, Hije Heinzi, a Konzacho, Holjish, Do Holjish, Do Hehedeya, Isrago, A Langes La, Honde, Yad Eho. Sad Ilini, Beyatke or Besoze. A call head Hibini don't let Adosh Adoshnet, Honda, Tonest is there, Adon Hinam, Honda, we have 9 chapters surrounding to the city. A call Aden Shinkdo, Ado and Nana Central Agency, Northern, Ado and with the loop in that area. Aden sheets dot slap quagging or ya. Adon nana, we a beshpansa un laid now got or big what I named Hodin Hanatza, Kahashi Aj Odo, kare trasinda. Aro enda kage ekwaage solta. Konzaje is not holji ako hehet trago. What are they hasi dole? Thank you and good night. Mike, we're off.